Chapter 4860. Xiaohua waved his hand and said, "Sect leader Lu, don't be anxious. Listen to me slowly." Yes, I'm not in a hurry. Have a taste of the spirit fruit first." Lu Hanhuan was so happy that he didn't know what to do. He picked up the spirit fruit from the jade table and said carefully. Xiaohua nodded slightly and ate a few spirit fruits. He said, "I don't know if the fallen immortal sect's heavenly cycle demon subduing star formation is complete, but since it's the heavenly cycle demon subduing star formation of the fallen immortal sect, it doesn't matter if their formation is complete or not. It's not suitable for your sect to control the heavenly cycle demon subduing star formation, unless your sect doesn't want to have a foothold in the Fengyan kingdom." Lu Hanhuan took a deep breath and came to a realization. The Chanha sect didn't dare to keep the formation flags used by the Royal Dome spiritual master. They didn't even dare to enter the incomplete formation. How could they dare to have the same heavenly cycle demon subduing star formation as the fallen immortal sect? If this news was leaked out, not only would the fallen immortal sect not allow the Chanha sect to exist in this world, their enemies would also extend their evil hands to the Chanha sect. Lu Hanhuan stood up and bowed. "Thank you for your reminder. I was too happy to see the formation and didn't think of so many advantages and disadvantages." "Don't mention it." Xiaohua waved his hand. "We're both cultivators and humans. It's inevitable that we'll think of something." Then, Xiaohua looked at Nuo Yeqing and said, "Give me another blank jade slip." "Yes, senior." When Nuo Yeqing saw Xiaohua repeatedly asking for jade slips from him, he knew that this was attracting the attention of the sect head. He felt grateful in his heart and hurriedly took out a blank jade slip and respectfully handed it over. Lu Hanhuan didn't expect Xiaohua to do it immediately. He hurriedly waved his hand and said, "Brother Zhang, there's no need to rush. It's okay." Xiaohua took the jade slip and used his spiritual sense to check it. He said, "It's just a formation. It'll be done soon." Lu Hanhuan's expression changed slightly. He thought to himself, "It's just a formation? How can the fallen immortal sect's formation be set up so easily? Could it be that this fellow is a senior?" As he thought of this, he could not help but look at Pang Lusheng. Pang Liusheng's expression was also uncertain. Sure enough, in less than half a cup of tea's time, Xiaohua had already engraved the formation into the jade slip. However, he didn't pass it to Lu Hanhuan. Instead, he tossed it to Yu Hua and said, "Yu Xinzi, thank you, Hong Feng, Zhang Ji, and Lu Qingyu. This is something I promised all of you before. I hope it can help your Chan sect." Yu Hua quickly got up and took the jade slip. She was happy but also a bit disappointed. She respectfully bowed and said, "Junior thanks senior for the gift." After Yu Hua handed the jade slip to Lu Hanhuan, Xiaohua explained, "Inside the jade slip is the array formation method of the Pleiades devil-devouring immortal formation. Since sect leader Lu only has the strength of a nascent soul realm cultivator, I only left a simple version for the Chanhe sect. Sect leader Lu and the 3 elders only need to refine 108 array flags and 1 array disc to set up the array. Furthermore, in I's opinion, if sect leader Lu and the 3 elders can set up this array, your realms will definitely improve even further." Lu Hanhuan had originally used his divine perception to check the jade slip. The exquisiteness of the formation had already shocked him greatly. Now that he heard Xiaohua's explanation, how could he not know that he had met a senior? He didn't have time to look at the jade slip anymore. He hurriedly bowed again and said, "Junior greets Senior Zhang. Earlier I was really rude." There's no need for that." Xiaohua calmly waved his hand and said, "I didn't reveal my identity, so I can't blame you. Furthermore, I have some fate with these disciples of your Chanhe sect, so I don't mind these customs." "Senior." Although Pang Lusheng didn't see the formation in the jade slip, he believed in Lu Hanhuan's judgment. Since Lu Hanhuan thought that Xiaohua was a senior, he didn't dare to be negligent. He hurriedly got up and bowed, "Forgive me for being blind. I really didn't expect that, in this era where high-level cultivators are all living in seclusion, there would still be a senior walking around the Yilin continent." Xiaohua asked curiously, "What do you mean?" Why would high-level cultivators live in seclusion? Lu Hanhuan and Pang Lushing were taken aback by Xiaohua's words. Then, the two of them looked at each other in disbelief before falling to their knees at almost the same time and crying out, "Senior, save us! Senior Zhang!" Seeing their sect master fall to his knees, Xiaofeng, Yun Songyu, and Hong Feng hurriedly knelt down and said, "Please save our Chanhe sect." Xiaohua had already learned something from Lu Qingyu and the others. Seeing them all kneel down, he smiled bitterly in his heart. He was a grand ascension stage human cultivator, but the problem was he hadn't recovered his strength yet. Who knew what kind of danger the Chanhe sect was in? He couldn't just casually answer in a situation where he couldn't ascertain the situation. Strangely, before Xiaohua had a chance to speak, Lu Hanhuan turned and said, "Xiaofeng, you and the other disciples are to leave the Bright Heart Palace. Without my permission, you're not to enter at will." "Yes, we understand," Xiaofeng answered and left with the other disciples. However, they all had a faint smile on their faces because they already knew that Xiaohua was a warm-hearted senior. He would definitely not abandon the Chanhe sect. Xiaohua didn't disappoint Yu Hua and the others. After the disciples left, he asked, "Sect Master Lu, what kind of danger has your Chanhe sect encountered?" Unexpectedly, Lu Hanhuan smiled and said, "Senior Zhang, our Chanhe sect has indeed encountered a crisis. However, now that we have the formation flag that you gave to Nua Yeqing, I have sent Elder Gao to the fallen Immortal sect. I believe that with the mediation of the fallen Immortal sect's disciples, this crisis is not a crisis. This junior doesn't dare to trouble Senior Zhang with this matter." "Oh, so that's your plan?" Xiaohua nodded and said, "Then I understand. I wonder if the two of you—" "Oh, did you encounter any problems in your cultivation?" "That's not right. The two of you are still quite a distance away from the bottleneck of the peak nascent soul stage," Xiaohua said casually, but every word he said made Lu Hanhuan and Pang Liuxing's hearts skip a beat. It was as if their cultivation realms were nothing in front of this seemingly ordinary cultivator. "Senior, it's like this?" After Xiaohua finished asking, Lu Hanhuan respectfully explained the matter. Pang Lushing also smiled and said, "Senior, since we late nascent soul stage cultivators can feel the passage of our lifespan, then the spirit severing stage, void refinement stage, and unity stage seniors must have sensed it long ago. This is also the fundamental reason why there haven't been many high-level seniors in our Fengyan country recently, so this junior misunderstood senior, yes." Lu Hanhuan quickly said, "Since senior didn't sense the passage of your lifespan, there must be some secret technique. This junior earnestly requests senior." Speaking up to here, Lu Hanhuan was unable to continue speaking, and even he himself felt slightly embarrassed. After all, he and Xiaohua were neither relatives nor friends, and they had no relationship at all. How could Xiaohua possibly casually pass down such a precious secret technique to him? Unexpectedly, Xiaohua frowned and said without any hesitation, "Sect Master Lu, it's not that this old man is selfish and doesn't want to pass on the secret technique to the two of you. It's because this old man has just come out of seclusion. This old man? Before I went into seclusion, the changes in the spiritual chi of heaven and earth were not obvious, and this old man has not encountered the passage of my lifespan. Therefore, this old man has no secret technique to pass on to the two of you. Perhaps in a few days, this old man will also inform you of the passage of my lifespan." "Oh, so that's how it is." Lu Hanhuan and Pang Lusheng suddenly understood. They did not suspect him, because Xiaohua's explanation of coming out of seclusion just so happened to confirm the matter of him crashing into the heavenly cycle demon subduing star array. As for breaking through the realm and entering, it was not something the two of them could understand with their cultivation levels, so they could not possibly think in that direction. Seeing that the two of them were a little disappointed, Xiaohua said with a smile, "Don't be anxious. This old man will take a look at the situation first. If there is also a limit to the passage of my lifespan, this old man will think of a way. If I have any insights, not only will I tell you, but I will also tell others." Senior is really merciful. Pang Lusheng couldn't help but sigh with emotion. Lu Hanhuan, on the other hand, was ecstatic. In that case, Senior is going to stay in my Nebula Ridge for a period of time? Hee, of course. Xiaohua smiled. This old man has put in a lot of effort in your Jianghu sect. How can I succeed if I don't gain anything? Yes, this junior understands. Lu Hanhuan hurriedly replied. This junior will arrange for my disciple? No, senior, please take a look at my Nebula Ridge first. This junior will immediately arrange a quiet room for you. There's no need to trouble yourself. Xiaohua waved his hand and said, this old man wants to take a look at the ancient books of your sect now. I wonder if it's convenient for you. Lu Hanhuan only hesitated for a moment, secretly wondering if he should tidy up the Lapse Palace where the ancient books of the sect were stored. However, he then smiled bitterly again. Among the cultivation methods of the Jianghu sect, the highest cultivation method could only be cultivated to the spirit-severing stage. Even if he was lucky enough to break through to the spirit-severing stage, he would still have to go to the auction house to buy void refinement realm cultivation methods in the future. It could be said that all the ancient books in the Lapse Palace might not be as valuable as the Pleiades Sun Devil devouring immortal formation that Xiaohua had previously given to the Jianghu sect, not to mention that Xiaohua had also given the Jianghu sect a method to select disciples' spiritual roots. Why should I hide it in front of Xiaohua? Hence, Lu Hanhuan smiled and said, since Senior is so anxious, this junior will accompany you to the Lapse Palace. The Lapse Palace stores the ancient books that my Jianghu sect has collected since the establishment of the sect, including cultivation methods, refining methods, the Tao of pill refinement, and so on. Then this old man will wait first. Xiaohua immediately replied, we'll talk about it after sect leader Lu tidies up. No need. Lu Hanhuan replied without hesitation. Now, my Jianghu sect no longer hides anything from Senior. Senior, please go ahead. P.S. Fellow Taoists who like this book, please go to Qidian to subscribe to support, vote for a monthly vote for a recommendation vote, bookmark, reward, and thank you for all forms of support. Chapter 4861. Good. Xiaohua liked Lu Hanhuan's straightforwardness and said with a smile, when the other disciples come tomorrow, I will help you select disciples first. Then, I will find some time to see if there are any changes in the spiritual qi of heaven and earth and give you some cultivation methods. Thank you, Senior Zhang. Lu Hanhuan was so happy that he couldn't close his mouth and begged in a low voice, if possible, can you give me some void refinement cultivation methods? Of course, Xiaohua didn't refuse at all. Not to mention void refinement cultivation methods, even body fusion cultivation methods were just firewood in the eyes of the great sages of the human race. If it wasn't for the fact that Xiaohua couldn't enter the space and the spiritual qi of heaven and earth didn't change, Xiaohua could take out a few cultivation methods and give them to Lu Hanhuan now. Why wait until tomorrow? Senior, please. With Xiaohua's promise, although Lu Hanhuan didn't use his magic power, his figure was about to fly away. The Hall of Time was a very different hall from the Clear Heart Hall and the Jade Orchid Hall. Strange runes were engraved on the door of the hall like floating clouds. On the stone wall, there was a picture that looked like a rainbow that crossed the sun hanging on the roof of the Hall of Time. As soon as he stepped into the Hall of Time, Xiaohua couldn't help but feel that time was passing by. He withdrew his gaze from the runes around him and stared at the roof of the hall with a frown for about half a cup of tea's time. Senior. Only Lu Hanhuan accompanied Xiaohua. Seeing Xiaohua frown, he was a little puzzled and asked in a low voice, is there something wrong with this mural? This rainbow crossing the sun painting. Which fellow Taoist of your sect left it behind? Xiaohua suddenly asked. Lu Hanhuan looked at the familiar mural and shook his head. Since I joined the Jianghu sect, this mural has been here. As for which senior left it behind, I don't know. But is there something wrong with this mural? Xiaohua nodded and said, yes, this is a very powerful Tao formation. However, activating the formation requires a formation tool. Since sect leader Lu doesn't know the origin of the mural, the formation tool must have been lost. No way. Lu Hanhuan was a little dumbfounded because he never thought that this mere mural was actually a powerful magic array. Then, Lu Hanhuan asked anxiously, then, Senior, Do you know what the sun-crossing rainbow array looks like? Xiaohua shrugged. With an appearance of wanting to help but unable to do so, he replied. Sect Master Lu, I'm not by Shaoxing, I only know that this is a formation diagram. As for what the formation treasure is used to activate the formation diagram, I'm afraid only your sect's disciples would know, right? Yes, yes. Lu Hanhuan nodded with a smile and led Xiaohua to the side of the hall. On one side of the elapsing palace, there were many sun crowns of various sizes. The faint sunlight from the rainbow painting shone on these sun crowns like pillars. What was extremely strange was that although the source of the sunlight was the same, the position of the needle on the corona was different. Furthermore, when Xiaohua's divine sense swept over the place, he could clearly see that there were a total of 365 corona in the elapsing palace. The position of the crown needle on each corona was different, and it just so happened to cover a complete crown. Moreover, at every moment, the shadow cast by the crown needle of the 365 corona was changing, but the shadow cast by each crown needle was absolutely not overlapping. Senior. As Lu Hanhuan spoke, he raised his right hand, and from the jade ring on his left hand he took out a magic tool that looked like a candle and respectfully handed it over to Xiaohua. This is the magic tool to open the Hall of Time. Senior, please take it first. Xiaohua didn't take the magic tool, but looked at Lu Hanhuan with a smile and didn't say anything. Lu Hanhuan didn't understand at first, but after a moment, he suddenly realized something. His eyes flashed with a strange color, and his heart couldn't help but beat wildly in his chest. Senior Zhou. So his magic power is gone. A voice screamed in Lu Hanhuan's heart. No wonder. I didn't see him use his magic power, and even when we were going from the Yulan Palace to the Clear Heart Palace, I didn't see him use any escape technique. Lu Hanhuan knew better than anyone what it meant to be a void refinement or unity stage cultivator who had lost all his magic power. In an instant, a dark joy appeared in his heart. That scream was the publicity of the devil in his heart. However, it was only for a moment, and Lu Hanhuan's expression calmed down again. Although he couldn't be considered a decisive sect leader, he was a qualified human cultivator. The ecstasy in his eyes disappeared, and he smiled at Xiaohua. While activating his magic power, he cast a simple spell on the magic tool. Swish! With a light sound, it was as if a candle in the dark night had been lit. A layer of crimson brilliance emerged from the magic tool, and all of a sudden, the surrounding darkness was driven away. That crimson light was reflected in Lu Hanhuan's eyes, and similarly, it produced a brilliant brilliance, dispelling the darkness in his eyes. Lu Hanhuan held the lit magic tool and walked in front of a corona. He stared at it for a moment, and then carefully waved his hand. The magic tool was thrown on the corona, and it completely overlapped with the flashing needle. Boom! With a slight rumbling sound, the corona trembled and flew in front of Lu Hanhuan. Shwa! The corona needle on the corona split into two and spun in two different directions. Two black and white brilliance rippled on the surface of the corona like water ripples. Bang! When the two water ripples collided, they set off layers of ripples. In these ripples, the corona expanded rapidly, and a magic tool that was very similar to the rainbow on the roof of the palace appeared. The magic tool was divided into 12 layers, and each layer had a different color. Moreover, there were more or less jade slips on each layer. Senior. Lu Hanhuan raised his hand and pointed at the magic tool, explaining, "This long rainbow pavilion stores the ancient books that my Jianghu sect has accumulated for generations. There are no restrictions in the long rainbow pavilion. Senior, please feel free to read them." With that, Lu Hanhuan took out a jade slip from the long rainbow pavilion and handed it to Xiaohua. Then he pointed at a random place in the long rainbow pavilion. Bang! The long rainbow pavilion trembled slightly and quickly shrank. When it returned to the shape of a corona, the candle-like magic tool also fell from it. Lu Hanhuan caught the candle-like magic tool and handed it to Xiaohua respectfully. He turned and left without any hesitation. Looking at Lu Hanhuan's back, Xiaohua smiled. He then looked at the jade slip in his hand and didn't look at it. Instead, he sat down cross-legged and rubbed his chin as he thought to himself, When I left the demon realm, I was ambushed by the Fire Phoenix King. But man proposes, God disposes. Not only did I not die under the impact of the realm, I even made it to the Yi-Lin continent. Although I don't know if this Yi-Lin continent is the Dao Heaven realm, this is the other side of the Million Meng Mountains. I'm 50% sure. No, it should be 80% sure. Because the spiritual energy change in the Yi-Lin continent is almost exactly the same as the spiritual energy change in the Xiaoyu continent in my memory. As long as I get the news of the Immortal Alliance and the Xiaoyu continent from the Chanhe sect or the auction in the Fengyan kingdom, this matter will be confirmed. If I can confirm that the Yi-Lin continent is a part of the Xiaoyu continent, then I only need to pass through the Wuming mountain range to find the Witch King of the Witch King token and return to the Xiaoyu continent. It has already been nearly 30 years since I left the West Sea of the three continents. Although the process has been tortuous, this Xiao has still followed the previous plan to the last few steps. The time left for this Xiao seems to be quite sufficient. However, I still have a few difficulties. I'm afraid it's not easy to make a decision. Xiao Hua thought and frowned. First, I have no spiritual power. It's even worse than when I was in the 10,000 demon realm. Whether it's the space, the Naiwan Palace, the middle Dantian, or the lower Dantian, I can't sense them. Especially, my physical body and many of my avatars are slowly condensing and recovering. I don't know how long this process will take. Second, the impact of the change in the spiritual energy of heaven and earth is too great. It's so great that the entire Dao sect can't bear it. It's really far beyond my expectations. Nascent soul cultivators are going through tribulation. This is a fatal blow to the Yi-Lin continent and the Xiaoyu continent's cultivators. They may not have time to temper their bodies before facing the lightning tribulation. There's an 80 to 90% chance that they will die. For the Fortune Gate's disciples, this is just bad news. It increases the difficulty of their cultivation, but it may not be fatal. But, because of the change in the spiritual energy of heaven and earth, the lifespan of spirit-severing cultivators is inexplicably decreasing. This is not something the Fortune Gate's disciples can deal with. Even if they pass the lightning tribulation and become nascent soul or spirit-severing cultivators, what's the use? Could it be that they are like the high-level cultivators of the Yi-Lin continent, hiding in the heavenly paradise and not daring to come out? If so, Xiong Yi, Li Xiang, and the others should have stayed in the 10,000 demon realm. They shouldn't have returned to the Xiaoyu continent. When Xiaohua thought of this, he was suddenly shocked. He almost opened his eyes and whispered, "Not good. If the spiritual energy of heaven and earth changes like this, when I destroy the immortal array, the spiritual energy of heaven and earth will kill all the world-destroying mayflies. Lu Yi and the others, won't they have to face the same predicament that the high-level cultivators of the Yi-Lin continent are facing now? How can they cultivate to the Mahayana realm? How can they ascend to the immortal world? Moreover, the spiritual energy of heaven and earth is so unfavorable for us Dao sect cultivators. What about the Confucian cultivators? What about the Buddhist disciples? But if I don't lead the spiritual energy of heaven and earth into the three continents, under the attack of the world-destroying mayflies, the billions of lives on the three continents will be exterminated. It's impossible for me not to destroy the immortal array." Xiao Hua immediately felt that he was in a dilemma. What should I do? 10,000 demon realm. Without thinking too much, Xiao Hua naturally thought of the 10,000 demon realm. However, this thought only lasted for a moment before he strangled it again. P.S. The development of the plot has been slow recently, so I've added an update today. Thank you all for your support, and a special thank you to the Wandering Dragon Holiday Alliance leader. Fellow Taoists who like this book, please go to Qidian to subscribe to support, vote for a monthly vote, vote for a recommendation vote, bookmark, gift, and Chapter 4862. Return to the 10,000 demon realm. It's easy to say but difficult to do. Xiao Hua smiled bitterly. Let's not talk about how difficult it is to cross the realm. Even with this Xiao's cultivation, I can't cross between two mature realms, let alone those low-level cultivators. Just the Yi-Lin continent, Xiaoyu continent, and the other 3 continents, there is no space passage that can be used. Our human race's cultivators can't set foot in the 10,000 demon realm. If the 10,000 demon realm is not possible, then there is only the Shenhua continent. Xiaohua also thought of his own space. The Fortune Gate's disciples are easy, just let them go in directly. But what about the other disciples? How can they listen to this Xiao? Moreover, although this Xiao has the Kunlun mirror as a cover, the Kunlun immortal realm is after all an illusion. It can't accommodate so many cultivators. Especially, this Xiao's immortal ascension lightning tribulation is imminent. The changes in the Shenhua continent are also imminent. This Xiao doesn't dare to take so many human cultivators with him. AI, what can I do? Xiaohua was very worried. Indeed, before the first wave had subsided, another wave had arisen. Even when the sky was bright and Lu Hanhuan was waiting outside the passage palace, Xiaohua still couldn't think of a suitable solution. Forget it. Xiaohua stood up and made a decision. Even if this Xiao has a space beast, void, in this space, it is only one space beast. How can it deal with so many strange insects in the 3 continents? Therefore, the immortal array of the 3 continents and the Xiaoyu continent must be broken. Otherwise, the world exterminating mayflies in the 3 continents will not be able to be completely exterminated. Moreover, under the changes in the spiritual energy of heaven and earth, the immortal array will be corroded sooner or later. The cultivators of the 3 continents will have to face this cruel reality sooner or later. This Xiao will only destroy the immortal array so that they will have to face it one day earlier. This Xiao's magic power has not recovered, and my doppelgangers have not completely condensed. It is useless for this Xiao to think too much. It is better to wait for my doppelgangers to come out, then this Xiao will discuss with them. I'll take advantage of this time to look at the news of the Fengyan Kingdom and the records of the Chanhe sect. Who knows, I might be able to find something. Xiaohua didn't have much time left, but it wasn't short either. Xiaohua's divine ability was no longer recovering, and it was impossible for him to pass through the millions of Meng mountains. As for the recovery of his fleshly body and divine ability, Xiaohua didn't have a good solution for now. Therefore, the best solution for him now was to stick to the status quo. As soon as he walked out of the Evanescent Palace, Lu Hanhuan immediately approached him and said respectfully, Junior did not dare to disturb Senior's quiet cultivation, but last night, Junior had sent an order for the children who are waiting to be selected to gather in the Magnolia Palace early in the morning. Junior boldly asks Senior to leave your seclusion and quickly deal with this matter. Well said. Xiaohua replied, then started walking towards the direction of the Yulan Palace. Lu Hanhuan could clearly see that Xiaohua wasn't using any magic power. He was just walking in the air. Wherever his feet landed, the void was like flat ground. What kind of divine ability is this? Lu Hanhuan was aghast. Could it be that what Senior Zhang said last night was to test me? While Lu Hanhuan was thinking, Xiaohua had already walked more than 100 feet away. Then, he turned his head and asked meaningfully, Sect Master Lu? Aren't you going to the Yulan Palace? Yes. Lu Hanhuan hurriedly moved his body and accompanied Xiaohua, flying all the way to the Yulan Palace. At this moment, the Yulan Palace was completely silent. Nearly 10,000 children were sitting cross-legged in several areas. The situation was similar to last night. Seeing Xiaohua and Lu Hanhuan come in, all the disciples of Chanhe sect bowed and said, Greetings Senior Zhang, greetings Sect Master, wait for me. Xiaohua looked around and waved his hand to indicate that he should get up. Lu Hanhuan said in a low voice, In order to shorten the time, Junior gathered all the disciples who are waiting to be selected here. Senior only needs to point out which disciples are suitable. Teach a man to fish rather than give him a fish. Sect Master Lu, you are a little impatient. Xiaohua said with a smile, Leave behind 500 disciples who are waiting to be selected. Send the rest out of the Yulan Palace. Then, find another 50 disciples of the Yulan Palace and let them comprehend the secret technique I gave you last night. Since I'm going to stay in Chanhe sect for a while, I might as well teach you all the secret technique. Senior, Lu Hanhuan said in a low voice, almost choking with sobs. In his life, other than his master, There was no other cultivator who treated him like this, right? Oh, don't tell me you didn't make arrangements last night and didn't let Xiaofeng choose the disciples of the Yulan Palace to start comprehending the secret technique of selecting spiritual roots. Xiaohua smiled at Lu Hanhuan and asked. Lu Hanhuan bowed respectfully and said, Senior Zhang, Junior knows that Senior's cultivation is important, so I was afraid to disturb Senior. But Junior didn't expect Senior to be so patient with my Chanha sect. Junior feels ashamed? Tisk. Xiaohua waved his hand and said, Don't think of me as too noble. I'm just using the disciples of your Chanha sect as an experiment to see how to modify the cultivation method and how to adapt to this mutated spiritual energy. When Lu Hanhuan heard this, he was stunned at first, but then he became even more respectful. He smiled and said, Senior, please wait for a moment. Junior will make arrangements. Then, Lu Hanhuan asked Xiaofeng and Yun Songyu to come over. After giving the order, Xiaofeng and Yun Songyu were also overjoyed. Yun Songyu flew back to arrange for the disciples to bring the extra children out of the Yulan Palace. Xiaofeng accompanied Lu Hanhuan and reported, Sect Master, Senior Zhang, Junior has already selected 30 disciples last night and let them comprehend the secret technique. Junior and Vice Palace Master Yun also took a look. This secret technique isn't amazing, but the so-called spiritual roots, the so-called mutated spiritual roots, it's really hard for us to understand. Moreover, we were in a hurry to refine those testing artifacts, so it wasn't easy to prepare them. So, I'm here today. Xiaohua said unhurriedly, I'm going to teach you little by little, including how to refine instruments and even how to refine pills. Good, good. Xiaofeng was not the only one who was overjoyed. Even Lu Hanhuan lost his composure. The two of them could only nod like chickens pecking at rice. Xiaohua changed the topic and said, However, I have a request. Senior, please tell us. As long as the Chanha sect can do it, we'll definitely do it. Lu Hanhuan said, his eyes almost looking at the moon in the distance. Chanha sect can't hide these refining techniques, pill refining tricks, and even the modified cultivation methods. You must make them public. Of course, you can keep your own cultivation methods. Xiaohua's request surprised Lu Hanhuan. Xiaofeng jumped up and shouted, Senior, these cultivation methods are yours. How can you just make them public? Xiaohua looked at the warlike Taoist cultivator and said, Xiaofeng, you have to know that with the change in the spiritual energy of heaven and earth, Taoism is in a period of depression and decline. At this time, cultivation is no longer important. The survival of Taoism is the key. These cultivation techniques might be superficial, but they were still sparks. They could attract the attention of others and allow others to use them as a reference. This was much more important than simply allowing the Chanhe sect to rise. Also, don't worry. If the cultivation methods come from Chanhe sect will definitely be famous. Similarly, if nothing unexpected happens, Chanhe sect will definitely be comparable to the fallen celestial sect in the future. Okay. Xiaofeng shrugged and said, Anyway, these cultivation methods and secret techniques belong to you. Senior, you can do whatever you want with them. Lu Hanhuan smiled and said, Senior, I'll take these cultivation methods to the auction house. This is a way to make it public, right? Of course, of course. Xiaohua said with a smile, This is the safest way and the best way to attract people's attention. If you give it away for nothing, people will treat it as trash. Only if you pay enough crystals will they really take it seriously. Thank you, Senior. Lu Hanhuan had no other way to express his gratitude except to thank him. He seemed to have seen the rise of Chanhe sect like the rising sun in the near future. After half the time it takes for an incense stick to burn, the arrangements in the Magnolia Palace had been completed. The 500 children were divided into 10 groups and sat there obediently. The 30 or so disciples that had been selected by Yun Songyu and the 10 or so disciples that had been sent over from other places were gathered together and waiting respectfully. Xiaohua had already seen that except for Yuehua, Nuo Yeqing, Lu Qingyu and the other disciples of Yulan Hall whom he had met once were all among the 50 disciples. Obviously, Lu Hanhuan had seen through Xiaohua's nostalgia. Xiaohua still walked to the center of Yulan Hall. Before he could speak, the 50 disciples hurriedly bowed and saluted. "Senior, thank you for your guidance." "Yes." Xiaohua nodded and said, "The so-called spiritual root is not something that can be involved in Taoism cultivation. You all only need to know." Subsequently, Xiaohua explained the secret technique to distinguish spiritual roots in detail, and according to the situation of each disciple, he explained in detail how to use it. This secret technique to distinguish spiritual roots was difficult to grasp even for Fortune Gate disciples, let alone Chanhe sect disciples. Even people as strong as Xia Feng and Yun Songyu seemed to have grasped the secret technique, but if they were to use it on the children in front of them, they felt that they had no idea where to start. However, Xiaohua was not in a hurry. Taoism cultivators practiced cultivation techniques from a young age. This secret technique was also a cultivation technique, but there were some soul techniques in it that made these cultivators feel at a loss. Once they were proficient, they would naturally be able to use it. Furthermore, Xiaohua's target was not the disciples of the Chanhe sect. After he explained the secret technique and gave them some pointers, he began to carefully investigate the 500 children left behind in the Magnolia Hall waiting to be selected. Xiaohua's attentiveness made Lu Hanhuan very surprised. Not only did Xiaohua examine the children's meridians, hearts, lungs, muscles, etc., he also examined the children's Naiwen Palace, Middle Dantian, and Lower Dantian. He even asked with interest about the children's background, living habits, and other things that had nothing to do with cultivation. P.S. Fellow Taoists who like this book, please subscribe to it at Qidian, vote for it, vote for it, vote for it, give it as a reward, and Chapter 4863. While Xiaohua was inspecting the disciples in the hall, he found that someone from the Chanhe school was already able to use the secret technique. However, this person surprised Xiaohua. This disciple was not a nascent soul cultivator like Xia Feng, nor was it a golden core cultivator like Hong Feng. It was Nuo Yeqing, a foundation establishment cultivator. Xiaohua was pleasantly surprised. He let Nuo Yeqing try it out on a few children who were waiting to be selected. Although there were some mistakes at the beginning, after Xiaohua pointed out a few more tricks, Nuo Yeqing was already able to successfully select the children with spirit roots. Moreover, her judgment of the spirit roots was also correct. "Good." Xiaohua patted Nuo Yeqing's shoulder and smiled. "You really do have some fate with this old man. I'll leave the task of teaching Palace Master Xia and Vice Palace Master Yun to you." Xia Feng and Yun Songyu had very awkward expressions. Xiaohua couldn't help but smile. He naturally wouldn't let a nascent soul cultivator lose face. While he had Nuo Yeqing report to Lu Qingyu in detail, he called Lu Hanhuan, Xia Feng, Yun Songyu and the others in front of a child with an earth-type spiritual root that Nuo Yeqing had just selected. He carefully discussed with them how to refine the magic tool. After Lu Hanhuan and the others memorized the magic tool's formation and the secret technique, Lu Qingyu and the others gradually understood the secret technique. One by one, they gradually began to enter the hall. Xiaohua didn't neglect them. He had each of them be responsible for the test of 10 children waiting to be selected. As for Lu Hanhuan and the others, they went to refine the magic tool. 10 children, it wasn't a lot, but it wasn't a small number either. Under Xiaohua's occasional pointers, Lu Qingyu and the others repeatedly practiced. When night came, most of the 50 Chanhe school disciples were able to control the secret technique skillfully. They were able to select the children with spiritual roots that they were responsible for. Seeing that everyone was in high spirits, Xiaohua reminded them, "Let's stop here for today. The children are tired. Let them go back and rest." After saying that, Xiaohua no longer paid attention to the Yulan Hall disciples and walked out of the hall. All the disciples didn't dare to neglect Xiaohua and respectfully sent him off. When Xiaohua returned to the flowing palace, he closed his eyes and rested for a moment. Then a smile appeared on his face. He sent out his spiritual sense and carefully read the jade strip that Lu Hanhuan took out yesterday. There weren't many things recorded in the Yilin continent in this jade slip. Instead, there were many records of the Chanhe sect's establishment and development plans, as well as the deeds of the previous sect masters and famous disciples. Xiaohua didn't have any impatience and patiently looked through it. In the following 10 days, Xiaohua guided the Chan He sect disciples in the Yulan Hall to familiarize themselves with the selection Dharma art. He also guided Lu Hanhuan, Xia Feng, and the others in refining the selection Dharma artifact. At the same time, he asked Lu Hanhuan to take out the Chan He sect's cultivation technique and modify it bit by bit according to his understanding of the laws of heaven and earth. When night fell, Xiaohua returned to the flowing hall and checked the manuals of the Chan He sect. From time to time, he would call Lu Hanhuan over to ask. It was during these fulfilling days that Yu Zhuohong returned from the auction. There was no need for Zhuohong to report too much. Xiaohua looked at the excitement in Lu Hanhuan's eyes and knew that the Chan He sect had gained a lot from this auction. Yu Zhuohong roughly explained the situation of the auction and took out the crystals, jade slips, and other items that he had obtained and placed them in front of Xiaohua. Xiaohua casually took the jade slip and checked it with his divine sense. He smiled and said, "Thank you for your trouble, Elder Yu." Yu Zhuohong had long known about Xiaohua's actions. Now, he was even more respectful. He bowed and said, "Compared to what Senior has done for my Chan He sect, what Junior has done is really insignificant. Moreover, this auction only involved cultivators from the Fengyan nation and a few nearby nations. The owner of the auction didn't seem to be present. Junior didn't help Senior find out about the Defeat You Immortal alliance. I've really disappointed Senior." It's fine. Xiaohua waved his hand and said, "If you can't do it this time, there will be a next time. This disciple selection secret technique is so popular. If the Chan He sect doesn't take advantage of this opportunity to make a big profit, you've really let this old man down." Yes. Yu Zhuohong's face also flushed red. In his memory, the Chan He sect hadn't been so popular in the auction for a long time. "Senior." Lu Hanhuan, who was at the side, said with some surprise. Junior boldly asks, "Where exactly is the Defeat You Immortal alliance that you're looking for in the Yi-Lin continent?" In Junior's impression, my Yi-Lin continent seems to have two cultivation alliances, the Dao Alliance and the Heaven Alliance. These two alliances are formed by the sects and families of dozens of nations. The Fengyan nation should belong to the Dao Alliance in the northeast. When Junior was still a low-level cultivator, the Dao Alliance and the Heaven Alliance had some disputes and wars. Even within the alliance, there were often fights. However, due to the great change in the spiritual energy of heaven and earth, these fights have become fewer and fewer, not to mention large-scale battles. Hee. Xiaohua put down the jade slip in his hand and said with a smile, "This old man doesn't know where the Defeat You Immortal alliance is, but according to this old man's speculation, the Tseng Immortal alliance should be in the east of the Yi-Lin continent, not far from the Wu-Meng mountain range. As for the Dao Alliance and the Heaven Alliance, this old man has already seen them from your Chan He sect's records. However, this old man is a little puzzled. When this old man asked about the Defeat You Immortal alliance, why didn't you mention the Dao Alliance?" Lu Hanhuan's face was a little embarrassed as he said in a low voice, "I won't hide it from Senior. In the early years of the Fengyan nation, there were many sects like my Chan He sect. My Fengyan nation belongs to the Dao Alliance in name, but only the Fallen Immortal sect, Chongwei sect, Supa Mountain, and Liyan sect can appear in the Dao Alliance. My Chan He sect seems to have participated in the war between the Dao Alliance and the Immortal Alliance once 100,000 years ago, but never again. If Senior didn't mention the Immortal Alliance, Junior would have almost forgotten about these two Dao Alliance." "That's not all," Xiaohua said with a smile. "Looking at the records in your sect, the Dao Alliance has 81 Immortal Alliances, hundreds and thousands of countries, and 120 cultivation families. The Fengyan nation is also the country closest to the northeast of the Yi-Lin continent. Even the Fallen Immortal sect doesn't seem to be in the top 100 of the Dao Alliance, right?" Hee. Lu Hanhuan laughed and said with an indifferent look, "So, it's normal for Junior to not remember the Dao Alliance and the Heaven Alliance. Perhaps the sect leader of the Fallen Immortal sect has already forgotten about the Dao Alliance." "No." Xiaohua shook his head slightly and said, "You're wrong. Although the change in the heaven and earth spiritual qi had changed the development of the Dao sects, and regardless of whether it was the Tao Alliance or the Heaven Alliance, they were both declining rapidly. However, this was also an era where new forces were emerging. Whoever could quickly grasp a new cultivation method, or a new method of selecting disciples, would be able to lead the Yi-Lin continent. Moreover, don't worry, in the Yi-Lin continent that you can't see, no matter whether it's between the Tao Alliance and the Heaven Alliance, or within the Tao Alliance and the Heaven Alliance, the same battles and killings still exist. Hiss! Hearing this, Lu Hanhuan couldn't help but suck in a breath of cold air, as if he had understood something. His face instantly turned pale, but he still argued, But the cultivation technique of the Heaven Alliance seems to be different from that of the Tao Alliance. Different? Xiao Hua was slightly stunned, but he instantly understood. He thought to himself, the Tao Alliance cultivates the nascent soul, and the Heaven Alliance and the Tao Alliance are opposing each other. If I'm not wrong, they're probably cultivating the primordial soul. It's a pity that the Jianghu sect is too small, and there are no records of this at all. Senior. Yu Zhuohong also thought of something, and his face turned pale as well. He looked around naturally and said in shock, You mean that the Jianghu sect is now in a place where a huge opportunity lies? Xiao Hua pinched his chin and answered with narrowed eyes. If sect leader Lu can grasp this opportunity, the Jianghu sect in the future will not be the Jianghu sect now. I believe that even the fallen Immortal sect will have to look up to the Jianghu sect in the future. However, if sect leader Lu can't grasp this opportunity, the Jianghu sect will be in extreme danger. At this moment, Lu Hanhuan already had no mood to listen to what Xiao Hua was saying. His previous passion was as if it had been doused by ice water, and it was chilling to the core. He already knew how dangerous the situation was for him and the Jianghu sect. It was true that the modified cultivation method was good, but a man's wealth was his own ruin. If the Jianghu sect had this beautiful jade, it would be known by other sects sooner or later. Who knows, a huge disaster might befall them one day. At this point, Xiao Hua said embarrassedly, This is also my fault. I just came out of seclusion, and I don't know much about the situation in the Yi-Lin continent. It was only these few days that I found out about the current situation in the Yi-Lin continent after reading the ancient books. Yu Zhuohong pondered for a moment, and the paleness on his face faded slightly. He looked at Lu Hanhuan and said, Sect leader, what senior said makes sense. Opportunities will never come for no reason. If there is no huge disaster, how can there be a huge opportunity? Previously, when I entered the auction, I was also a little afraid. However, when I was bidding for the secret technique, I understood. What Senior said earlier is really the way to solve this disaster. The Jianghu sect should make the secret technique and cultivation method public as soon as possible, and even join forces with the famous sects under the Taoist Union. This is the way for the Jianghu sect to protect ourselves. Yes, this is a serious matter. I need to think carefully. Lu Hanhuan understood this. He thought for a while and nodded. Follow me to the Ming Xen Hall first, and discuss with Elder Pang. After Elder Gao returns, we will make a decision. Oh, Elder Gao hasn't returned yet? Yu Zhuohong asked curiously. Although the Jianghu sect doesn't have a transportation array directly to the fallen Immortal sect, it shouldn't take so long. Sigh. Lu Hanhuan sighed. Elder Gao is an elder in the Jianghu sect, but in the fallen Immortal sect, she is just an ordinary nascent soul cultivator. How can she casually meet the sect leader of the fallen Immortal sect? The array flag of the heavenly cycle demon subduing star array can't be revealed casually. I'm afraid Elder Gao won't be back soon. But Yu Zhuohong wanted to say something, but when he saw Xiao Hua beside him, he swallowed his words. Then he took out a jade slip from his chest and handed it to Xiao Hua respectfully. Senior, although I didn't find out any information about the fallen Immortal sect, I heard from a few cultivators that the transportation route from the Fengyan Kingdom to the Qie Kingdom, which is the border of the Taoist Union. The Wuming Mountain Range is in the east of the Yi-Lin continent. If you want to go to the Wuming Mountain Range, you have to at least reach the Qie Kingdom first. In addition, I also bought the topographic map of the Yi-Lin continent and the power distribution of some of the cultivation sects in the Heaven Alliance. Senior, please take your time to check. P.S. Fellow cultivators who like this book, please subscribe to it at Qidian, vote for it, vote for it, vote for it, give it as a reward, and Chapter 4864. Very good. Xiaohua took the jade scroll with a smile and looked at the crystals in front of him. He asked Lu Hanhuan, Sect Master Lu, do you have any extra storage bracelets? Yes. Lu Hanhuan hurriedly took out a storage bracelet and handed it to Xiaohua respectfully. Junior's storage bracelet's quality is not particularly good. It doesn't matter. Xiaohua took it with a smile and said, I'm just using it temporarily. If the quality is good, it would be a waste. Seeing Xiaohua put the jade scroll into the storage bracelet, Lu Hanhuan and Yu Zhuohong looked at each other and prepared to leave. Xiaohua waved his hand and gave most of the crystals to Lu Hanhuan. Sect Master Lu, I don't need so many crystals. I'll give these to your Chanhe sect. Lu Hanhuan still wanted to decline, but at this moment, with a swoosh, a fist-sized cyan crane-like object flew in from outside the hall. It drew a faint arc and landed in front of Lu Hanhuan's eyes. Lu Hanhuan was stunned and looked at Xiaohua and Yu Zhuohong. He raised his hand and pointed at the green crane's forehead. Ping! The green crane exploded and Gao Cheng's voice came from inside, reporting to Sect Master, I've brought back the fallen Immortal sect disciples. Sect Master, please send the disciples to welcome them. Elder Gao has finally returned. Lu Hanhuan laughed loudly, looking as if a heavy burden had been lifted from his shoulders. Then, Lu Hanhuan did not say anything else and kept the crystals. He said respectfully, Senior, please cultivate here. I'll go welcome the fallen Immortal sect disciples. Go. Xiaohua waved his hand and Lu Hanhuan hurriedly left with Yu Zhuohong. Xiaohua sat down and used his divine perception to check the jade scroll that Yu Zhuohong brought back. He smiled and thought to himself, that's right, this Yilin continent is the other side of the Dawn Rain continent. The terrain of this Yilin continent is almost the same as what Feng Wu got from the Great Sage Hall. It's just that the corner of the Dawn Rain continent is missing. Moreover, the Yilin continent has the Dao Alliance and the Heaven Alliance, which coincides with the name of the Heavenly Dao Realm. This Yilin continent must be the Heavenly Dao Realm that the Swift Cherry Supreme Sage mentioned. What's special is that the Dao sects in Yilin continent are indeed very prosperous. It's hard for the Dawn Rain continent to reach it. There was actually a transmission channel from the remote Fengyan Kingdom to the so-called Qie Kingdom. Although he did not know how to get to Wuming Mountain from Qie Kingdom, there should be other teleportation channels in the territory of the Heavenly Alliance, right? As long as I use the crystal stones, I can easily reach the Wumeng Mountain range. Looks like the trip to the Yilin continent will be much smoother than the 10,000 Demon Realm. A trace of regret appeared in Xiaohua's heart when he thought of success. He regretted pushing the Chanhe sect into the limelight. He also regretted giving the Chanhe sect the secret technique to select disciples before he recovered his divine ability. What about the modified cultivation method? Should we give it to them? Xiaohua secretly asked himself. After these days of inspection and comprehension, Xiaohua already had some knowledge of the cultivation methods below the nascent soul stage. He could record them in a jade slip and hand them over to the Chanhe sect at any time. However, whether these cultivation methods were a blessing or a curse to Lu Hanhuan was not something Xiaohua could grasp. Let's see Lu Hanhuan's choice. Xiaohua quickly made a decision. If he is ambitious, there is no harm in giving these cultivation methods to him. But if he wants to stay in the Fengyan Kingdom, these cultivation methods, there is no need to give them to him. Soon after, Xiaohua waved his hand. He didn't need to use any technique at all. The candle-like magic tool that had stopped on one of the corona rose up and landed on the shadow of the other corona's needle. Shwa! When another rainbow appeared, Xiaohua casually took out a jade slip from inside and carefully looked at it. After a long time, Xiaohua suddenly raised his eyebrows and looked outside the hall. There was a smile on his face and he said loudly, "Let him in." In a moment, Nua Yecheng quickly walked in from outside the hall and bowed. "Junior greets Senior Zhang. Please forgive me for disturbing Senior's meditation. Get up." Xiaohua floated up and waved his hand. "Yecheng, do you have something urgent? Why did you come here at this time?" Nua Yeqing bit her lips and looked at Xiao Hua. Senior, Junior, wants to ask Senior a question. After Senior answers, Junior will tell Senior in detail. Xiao Hua raised his eyebrows and asked curiously, Say it, what do you want to ask? Senior. Nua Yeqing looked around and asked in a low voice, Can Sect Master hear Junior's words? He doesn't dare. Xiao Hua said with a smile, You can ask. It's like this. Nua Yeqing thought for a moment and said, Junior heard Senior say that you want to go to the Wuming Mountain Range. Do you want to go to the Wuming Mountain Range? Or do you want to go to the Wuming Mountain Range? Oh! Xiao Hua was dumbfounded. He originally thought that Nua Yeqing had received instructions from Lu Qingyu or Hong Feng, and had come to look for him in search of a modified cultivation method. He never thought that he would actually ask about the Wuming Mountain Range. Xiao Hua didn't hide it and answered, I want to go to the Wuming Mountain Range. However, it's fine if you don't know why I want to go there. Senior, can you take Junior with you? Nua Yeqing's face was filled with joy, and she hurriedly begged with a kind of eagerness in her eyes. You want to go to the Wuming Mountain Range? Xiao Hua was even more puzzled and asked, Why do you want to go to the Wuming Mountain Range? Besides, if you want to go, you can go anytime. Why do you want to go with me? Junior has a reason to go to the Wuming Mountain Range, but Junior wants to keep it a secret for now. Of course, Senior will have to keep it a secret for me. Nua Yeqing knew that Xiao Hua liked to be straightforward, so she simply told him everything. When we get to the Wuming Mountain Range, Junior will tell Senior everything. Junior has told Master about this before, but Master said that the distance between the Wuming Mountain Range and the Xingyun Mountain Range is more than 1,000,000 miles. It's too dangerous, and even he doesn't have the confidence to reach the Wuming Mountain Range, so he doesn't agree with Junior going. Hee, now that you know that I'm going, you want to go with me? Xiao Hua asked with a smile. Nua Yeqing lowered her head in embarrassment and nodded slightly. Was it your idea, or was it Lu Qingyu's idea? Xiao Hua asked with interest. Nua Yeqing hurriedly raised her head and said, This has nothing to do with Master. He's comprehending the secret skill that Senior gave him. You're going to the Wuming Mountain Range with me, so how are you going to come back? Xiao Hua asked meaningfully, or, you don't plan to come back at all? This. Nua Yeqing looked a little flustered. She hesitated for a moment before answering, Senior, I'll tell you everything before we get to the Wuming Mountain Range. At this time, I hope Senior won't force me. Yes, this old man understands. Xiao Hua didn't understand why Nua Yeqing wanted to go to the Wuming Mountain Range, but he still wanted to come. He replied, I can't answer you now. Can you let me think about it first? Yes, I'm sorry for disturbing Senior. If Senior finds it difficult, just pretend that I didn't say anything. Nua Yeqing hurriedly bowed and said, I'll take my leave. Seeing Nua Yeqing hastily turn around and leave, Xiao Hua bitterly smiled and shook his head. He then picked up the jade slip. However, before Xiao Hua could look at it for half an hour, boom boom boom. Outside the flowing time hall, a series of faint rumbling sounds resounded. Soon after, the light and shadow within the hall dimmed. The world spirit chi in the vicinity was like a whirlwind blowing towards the outside of the hall. After that, Xiao Hua felt the entire hall begin to slightly tremble and sway. What's going on? Xiao Hua was surprised. Could it be that the fallen Immortal sect disciples are dissatisfied with the Jianghu sect and have started to attack them? Thinking of this, Xiao Hua got up and walked out of the passage hall slowly. Lu Hanhuan hurriedly flew out of the passage hall. He didn't dare to hesitate and ordered Yu Zhuohong, Elder Yu, quickly send out my order. Send out the guest welcoming array to welcome the fallen Immortal sect disciples. Yes, sect master. After receiving the order, Yu Zhuohong hurriedly flew away. In less than half a cup of tea's time, boom, boom. Several rays of light appeared from Xingyun Ridge and rushed into the night sky, illuminating the area as bright as day. At the same time, groups of disciples in bright clothes flew out of the hall and lined up in a neat formation. They stood in front of the mountain gate of the Jianghu sect. There were thousands of disciples standing in midair. There were also some graceful female disciples holding pipa or flute in their hands. Following an old woman's hand gesture, the sound of strings and bamboo and the sound of zither started to sound slowly. Lu Hanhuan had already changed his clothes. He brought Yu Zhuohong and Pang Lushing out of the mountain gate and stood respectfully in midair. In the time it took to eat a meal in the night sky, a light boat flew over. This flying boat was only a few feet long. There were many runes engraved on the boat. A layer of faint red light shone out from these runes, illuminating the nearby night sky. In the faint red light, there was a sign floating in front of the flying boat that looked like a mountain range. It was very eye-catching. A low and almost inaudible rumbling sound came from this sign. Layers of heaven and earth spirit energy seeped out from the void and fell into this sign. Inside the flying boat, there were more than 10 cultivators in embroidered clothes. These cultivators all had dignified appearances and a heroic spirit. They emitted a faint fluctuation around their bodies. When this fluctuation landed on the flying boat, the faint red color of the flying boat became even brighter. Lu Hanhuan saw the extremely eye-catching mountain range sign in the night sky and a smile appeared on his face. He urged his body forward to welcome it. Yu Zhuohong and Pang Lushing didn't dare to be negligent and followed carefully. P.S. Fellow Taoists who like this book, please go to Qidian to subscribe to support, vote for a month, vote for a recommendation, collect, reward, and thank you for all forms of support. Chapter 4865. On the flying boat, Elder Gao Cheng was standing in front of the cultivators. Seeing the Chan He sect's disciples lined up to welcome them, Gao Cheng smiled and turned to the cultivator with a face like a full moon. Taoist Zhe, this is the mountain gate of our Chan He sect. The one flying in front is our sect leader Lu Hanhuan. The woman behind him is Elder Yu Zhuohong and the other is Elder Pang Lushing. Before Taoist Zhe could speak, a slightly short cultivator behind him snorted coldly and said, "Tsksk, Gao Cheng, your sect leader is actually a late-stage nascent soul cultivator. This is truly beyond my expectations. In that case, any one of us brothers can establish a sect in the vicinity of Nebula Ridge?" Not at all. Gao Cheng laughed. If Taoist Fan establishes a sect near Xingyun Ridge, how can our Chan He sect compete with the fallen Immortal sect? Our Chan He sect is willing to give Xingyun Ridge to Taoist Fan. Taoist Fan seemed to be very happy. He laughed loudly and said, "If my sect leader knew that I, Fan, had chased away the Chan He sect, who had helped the fallen Immortal sect, wouldn't he skin me alive? Forget it, this is not a good deal." Junior brother Fan. Senior brother Zhe laughed. Don't underestimate the Chan He sect. It has been established for almost 100,000 years. Any sect that can be established for so long in our Fengyan country must have its unique points. Lu Hanhuan may be in the late-stage nascent soul stage, but that is because he is burdened by the sect and cannot concentrate on cultivation. Otherwise, he will definitely surpass us and reach the spirit-severing stage. Senior brother Zhe had just finished speaking when someone behind junior brother Fan laughed. Reach the spirit-severing stage? That depends on whether he can pass the spirit-severing stage lightning tribulation. I have reached the mid-stage nascent soul stage, but I still don't have any confidence that I can pass the lightning tribulation. There was silence on the flying boat. Senior brother Zhe smiled and was about to speak when Lu Hanhuan's voice was heard. Are you a disciple of the fallen Immortal sect? I am Lu Hanhuan. I am here to welcome you all. Ahem. Junior brothers, Sect Master Lu of the Chan He sect has personally come to welcome you. Everyone pull yourselves together. Don't embarrass the fallen Immortal sect. Senior martial brother Zhe coughed twice. As a reminder, he tidied up his clothes and stepped out of the flying boat. He cupped his hands and said with a smile, I'm Zhejun from the falling Immortal sect. Greetings, sect leader Lu. After the banished ruler flew out of the flying boat, Gao Cheng smiled and also flew up from the flying boat. He raised his left hand and said respectfully, Fellow Taoists, please. Fellow Taoist Gao, please. Smiles returned to the faces of the fallen Immortal sect's disciples. They tidied their clothes and flew out from the flying boat. The last disciple who flew out waved his sleeve and a blurry halo spun out from his hand and covered the flying boat. The disciple let out a clear chuckle and raised his hand. The flying boat instantly shrank and fell into his sleeve. I'm Fan Di. Greetings, sect leader Lu. I am Lu Pingxi. Greetings, sect leader Lu. After the banished ruler, the group of fallen immortal sect's disciples came over to greet him politely. They showed the demeanor of a disciple from a big cultivation sect. Lu Hanhuan was overjoyed. Yu Zhuahong and Pang Luxing, who were behind him, also came over to greet him. They exchanged some polite words. Then, the Chan He sect's disciples rushed into the mountain gate. However, just as they flew to the front of Mingxin Hall, a loud roar was heard within 10,000 miles of Xingyun Ridge. Rays of light shot up into the sky and covered the surrounding sky. Gusts of wild wind rushed out from these rays of light and rushed toward Xingyun Ridge like raging waves. Wherever the wild wind passed, the void was torn apart. Ear-piercing cries and howls were heard, and the quiet night sky was torn apart. The darkness before dawn was even more dazzling now. What's going on? The fallen immortal sect's disciples were stunned. They looked around in confusion and their gazes landed on Lu Hanhuan. It was a pity that before Lu Hanhuan could speak, another earth-shaking roar of beasts was heard from the east and west. Tens of thousands of ferocious beasts were distorted and ferocious in the light. They flew and roared as they flew over. Caw-caw. The beasts' roars did not land. Instead, they attracted birds' cries from the north and south. Similarly, tens of thousands of birds spread out hundreds of wings and flew over. The sky was filled with feathers that flashed with a strange light and shadow. However, this light and shadow could not cover up the bleakness and darkness of the night sky. Flying Shadow Sect. This is the Flying Shadow Sect. The fallen immortal sect's disciple, Fan Di, suddenly came to his senses and exclaimed, Sect leader Lu, why did the Flying Shadow Sect suddenly besiege your Chan He sect? Is there any conflict between your Chan He sect and the Flying Shadow Sect? The banished ruler was flustered at first. However, he had already calmed down. He looked at Lu Hanhuan and said, Sect leader Lu, what's going on? We are still waiting for sect leader Lu's explanation. Lu Hanhuan frowned and looked at Gao Cheng. Gao Cheng's mouth was bitter. He hurriedly stepped forward and cupped his hands, saying, Taoist friend banished, this is the difficulty that I mentioned when I gave you the array flag. What? This is the difficulty that you mentioned? Lu Pingxi pointed at the flickering shadows on the left and shouted, You're not kidding me, are you? The fight between your Chan He sect and the Flying Shadow Sect is actually a difficulty that you want us to help you with? That's right. Gao Cheng hurriedly explained, My Chan He sect and the Flying Shadow Sect have a feud that is difficult to resolve. The Flying Shadow Sect wants to force my Chan He sect to leave Xingyun Ridge. Therefore, my sect leader wants the fallen immortal sect to mediate and end this feud. This is very difficult for my Chan He sect. However, in the eyes of the fallen immortal sect, it is very simple. But Taoist friend Gao should explain clearly. The banished ruler said unhappily, although there is nothing that the fallen immortal sect cannot do in the Fengyan kingdom, this is a dispute between the two sections. But fellow Taoist, you should have told us about the conflict between the sects in advance. Gao Cheng felt wronged and said, Taoist friend banished ruler, it is not that I don't want to say it. However, as soon as I said it, you were attracted by the banner of the heavenly cycle demon subduing star formation and ignored me. I think you didn't hear what I said clearly, right? Forget it, it is useless to talk about this now. The banished ruler looked at the night sky and saw the disciples of the Flying Shadow Sect standing on both the flying beasts and the demonic beasts. He smiled bitterly and said to Lu Hanhuan, Sect leader Lu, let's activate the sect protection array first. When the sect leader of the Flying Shadow Sect comes, I will go and take a look at the situation. But Lu Hanhuan had been ready for a long time. When he heard the banished ruler's words, he hurriedly waved his hand. A sharp sound rose into the sky. A halo the size of a fist extended into the sky. When it stopped, with a loud bang, a petal that was hundreds of feet in size bloomed from the halo. When the petal opened, 8 rays of light of different colors appeared at the tips of the 8 petals. These rays of light formed an arc and slid down in the night sky. Where the rays of light landed, ripples appeared. When the rays of light landed around the nebula ridge, boom, boom, boom. The entire nebula ridge shook. Faint clouds surged out from the ground. Countless light curtains moved against the sky. In a moment, an 8-colored sect protection array was activated. As for the disciples of the Jianghu sect, when Lu Hanhuan waved his hand, they had already activated their figures and divided into 64 teams. Each team had 64 disciples. These teams flew to different parts of the sect protection array. From afar, the 8 teams formed a star formation. The entire sect protection array was like 8 shining stars. The banished ruler was slightly stunned. He said with surprise, "Sect leader Lu, is this the 4 stars formation? Taoist friend banished, you are indeed from a famous sect. This is the 4 stars formation that has been passed down for generations in the Jianghu sect." Amazing! The banished ruler nodded and said, "I didn't expect to see the 4 stars formation in such a remote place. No wonder the Jianghu sect has been standing for so long. I admire you." "I don't dare. I've embarrassed myself in front of you." Lu Hanhuan hurriedly smiled and said, "The Jianghu sect is just a small sect. How can it be compared to the fallen Immortal sect? Although the sect protection array has been set up, I don't have the confidence to resist the attack of the Flying Shadow sect. We have to rely on the fallen Immortal sect." It's okay. Before the banished ruler could reply, Fan Di laughed and said, "If we didn't come tonight, we wouldn't have said anything. But since we are here, and the fallen Immortal sect has benefited from the Jianghu sect, how can we let the Jianghu sect suffer under the Flying Shadow sect?" Lu Pingxi and the others stood in the distance and frowned as they looked beyond the clouds. The beasts and birds of the Flying Shadow sect covered the sky and covered the earth. They were whispering to each other through voice transmission. Hearing Fandi's words, Lu Hanhuan hurriedly said, "Junior brother Fan, you can't say too much." Unfortunately, before Lu Pingxi could finish, the banished ruler sneered and said, "It's just a small sect. Why do you need to be arrogant? We have more than 10 nascent soul stage cultivators. Can't we take down the Flying Shadow sect?" Fan Di snorted and said, "That's right. If we don't drive the Flying Shadow sect away today, how can we return to the fallen Immortal sect?" Buzz buzz buzz. As Fan Di was speaking, another low rumbling sound came from the night sky. Between the birds and the beasts, tens of thousands of black dots appeared. These black dots were the size of a fist, and they were completely black. In the dark night, they were actually glowing. At the edges of the glowing dots, there was a pair of thin transparent wings flashing rapidly. The rumbling sound came from this flapping sound. P.S. Fellow cultivators who like this book, please subscribe to it at Qidian, vote for it, vote for it, vote for it, donate it, and... Chapter 4866. Damn it. Are these spirit-swallowing bugs? Banished Lord's face changed slightly, and he said in a low voice. Fandi's face also darkened. She bit her lips and didn't say anything. After the spirit-swallowing bugs flew out, the whole world was immersed in an inexplicable darkness. Even though the Jianghu sect's mountain guarding formation was surging with 8-colored brilliance, and even though there were strange lights around the birds and beasts, they couldn't stop the desolation in the darkness. The darkness not only blocked people's eyes, but also soaked people's hearts. The darkness and desolation swept across the earth and the sky. In just a few breaths, coo, 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 a rooster's crowing came from nowhere. The sound was very low and weak, but it was like a sharp sword piercing into the darkness. In the distance, in the east, the first light of dawn had also appeared. The darkness that had soaked people's hearts suddenly disappeared. The helplessness in the darkness suddenly turned into a bud of hope, and it bloomed instantly with the dawn in the sky. Lu Hanhuan's hope might not have bloomed, but he looked at the sunlight in the distance, and then his eyes fell on the handsome cultivators of the fallen Immortal sect. His hope had fallen on the shoulders of these arrogant cultivators. However, there was a trace of worry in the eyes of these arrogant cultivators. This was because within 1,000 miles of the Nebula Ridge, there were already flying beasts everywhere. These flying beasts were all huge in size, and on the back of each flying beast, There were cultivators dressed in strange clothes. These cultivators' faces, arms, and necks were engraved with strange patterns. The patterns were either beast heads, skulls, flowers, or stars and moons. These cultivators were a size larger than ordinary cultivators, and their muscles were as tough as mountain rocks on their muscular bodies. These cultivators drove the birds and beasts to surround the nebula ridge, but they didn't rush to attack. The spirit-swallowing bugs, which were as black as before, were now shining brightly, like flashing black fog, covering the sky. As the morning sun shone light from the horizon, woo! A series of rhythmic noises sounded again, and thousands of cultivators with various magic weapons formed a team and flew over with the wind. Ha! Loud and clear laughter sounded like a horn. In the laughter, a deafening roar sounded. In the orange-red sunlight, a red boa dragon, which was thousands of feet long, flew out of the team. A man held a long halberd in his hand, and he stood on the boa dragon, facing the sunlight. The boa dragon rushed to the nebula ridge in the sky, and the birds, beasts, and spirit-swallowing bugs all made way. When the boa dragon circled half a circle in the sky above the nebula ridge, it suddenly raised its head. Roar! With a loud roar, a fire pillar, which was dozens of feet long, shot out from the boa dragon's mouth and hit the protective array of the Jianghu sect. Buzz! The protective array of the Jianghu sect shook rapidly. Where the fire pillar landed, light splashed in all directions, and the clouds were broken. Dozens of disciples of the Jianghu sect, who were responsible for defending this area, were knocked down from the sky by the counterforce. The disciples of the other teams hurriedly activated their magic incantations, and their Dharma powers surged, barely protecting the protective array. Seeing that the attack didn't work, the boa dragon roared again. In the wind and clouds, the boa dragon's ferocious head was tightly attached to the protective array. A timid disciple of the Jianghu sect was guarding the array. Seeing the terrifying boa head, he screamed and flew back hundreds of feet. Damn it! Lu Hanhuan cursed in a low voice. Before he could speak, a tall cultivator, who was almost naked, on the boa dragon, looked up to the sky and laughed. The cultivator's body, which was covered with animal stripes, flashed a strange brilliance under the sunlight, and a dragon-shaped light shadow loomed in the brilliance. The cultivator's head was 3 times thicker than that of ordinary cultivators, and a few pieces of golden dragon scales were embedded around his cheeks. The cultivator's eyebrows were thick, and his cheekbones were bulging. Lines of runes, which looked like dragon stripes, were engraved around his cheekbones, connecting his eyes, nose, and ears together. After laughing, the cultivator lowered his head, opened his bloody mouth, and roared like thunder, "Lu Hanhuan, I'm coming! You should wash your ass and hand over the nebula ridge. If you know what's good for you, I'll let you and your disciples leave. If you don't know what's good for you, then don't blame me for being ruthless. All of my children are starving." As the cultivator's voice fell, thousands of ferocious birds and beasts roared, and waves of murderous aura mixed with bloody light rushed towards the nebula ridge. Although the murderous aura couldn't break the protective array, it had imperceptibly entered the hearts of the Jianghu sect disciples. Not only Nuo Yeqing, but even Lu Qingyu's face was filled with fear. Goat horn Shiwu. Lu Hanhuan moved his body and flew to the protective array in the sky, facing the boa head. He said, "My Jianghu sect doesn't have any deep hatred with your Flying Shadow sect. It's just a dispute over some crystals, and you've sent your entire sect to approach the nebula ridge, wanting to exterminate my Jianghu sect. You still think of yourself as a sect of the Fengyan kingdom? Damn it." The cultivator named Goat Horn Shiwu cursed, "Your Jianghu sect disciple injured my Flying Shadow sect disciple and didn't even apologize to my Flying Shadow sect. As the sect master of the Flying Shadow sect, how can I swallow this insult and not stand up for him?" Lu Hanhuan was so angry that his body trembled. He raised his hand and pointed at Goat Horn Shiwu, saying, "You're really biting back. It's obvious that your Flying Shadow sect disciple bullied others and forced my Jianghu sect disciple to make a deal. My Jianghu sect disciple was forced to fight back." Before Lu Hanhuan could finish, Fan Di of the fallen immortal sect snorted coldly and said, "If you want to condemn someone, you can always find a pretext. Sect Master Lu is too slow. He wants to exterminate your Jianghu sect, and you know his intentions. Why are you wasting time with him? Release the protective array and let us kill him." "Okay, I'll leave it to you." Lu Hanhuan bit his lips and bowed, saying, "The lives of tens of thousands of my Jianghu sect disciples are in your hands." Banished Monarch laughed. "Sect Master Lu, don't worry. Not to mention that your Jianghu sect found the array flag left behind by our ancestor for my fallen immortal sect. My fallen immortal sect can't just ignore the Flying Shadow sect's domineering attitude. If the Flying Shadow sect succeeds in front of us, how can my fallen immortal sect still be in charge of the Fengyan kingdom?" Yes, the fallen immortal sect is really the backbone of my Fengyan kingdom. You are also the messengers of justice. Lu Hanhuan said, "There are so many cultivation sects and families in my Fengyan kingdom. If the fallen immortal sect didn't maintain order, I'm afraid it would have been chaotic long ago." Lu Hanhuan said some flattering words, and Fan Di was already a little impatient. He urged his body to rush to the front of the big array. If he didn't have scruples about breaking the big array, he was afraid that he would have already flown out to teach the arrogant goat horn Shiwu a lesson. "Sect Master Lu," Banished Monarch reminded him. He didn't know how many times he had heard Lu Hanhuan's flattery in his life. Fan Di was still impatient, but he was already numb. Lu Hanhuan didn't dare to be negligent. Although he muttered in his heart, he still raised his hand and grabbed. In the sky, among the petals that were still flashing with 8-colored brilliance, a ball of light fell with a spell. Lu Hanhuan held it in his hand. With a shake of the wind, it turned into a 1-foot array flag. Lu Hanhuan activated his Dharma power. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. He waved it continuously, and several strong winds fell into the protective array. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. In the clouds, more than 10 light circles of 1 foot in size fell, covering the disciples of the fallen immortal sect. "Everyone please," Lu Hanhuan said respectfully. He waved the array flag again. The array flag turned into more than 10 streamers and fell into the light circles. The light circles brought the disciples of the fallen immortal sect out of Xingyun Ridge. Roar! Just as the disciples of the fallen immortal sect flew out, the python dragon under the goat-horned Shihu's feet roared. The python dragon raised its head high and was ready to pounce on Lu Pingxi, who was closest to it. "Damned evil creature!" Lu Pingxi roared angrily and waved his hand. A jasper pearl the size of a wicker basket appeared out of thin air. As Lu Pingxi spat out a mouthful of true qi on it, roar! As the jasper pearl vibrated, a similar roar came from within the pearl. Along with this sound, a dark green flood dragon, whose body was smaller than the python dragon's, rushed out from the misty brilliance. Although its ferocious aura was 3 times more powerful than the python dragon's, it rushed out from the misty brilliance. As soon as the flood dragon appeared, a chill immediately appeared in the air nearby, and ice shards began to fall from the sky with a su-ah-su sound. Seeing how powerful the green python dragon was, the red python dragon shrunk its body slightly. Then, its eyes turned red. It hissed and was ready to pounce. The goat-horned Shihu was a little surprised. It hurriedly tapped the python dragon with its feet and stopped the python dragon's attack. It shouted, "For you! How dare you stop me from killing Lu Hanhuan?" Then, the goat-horned Shihu looked around again. Except for Lu Pingxi, the other disciples of the fallen celestial sect, such as Fan Di, also took out their magic treasures. Although they did not use their magic treasures, they stood around the banished king in picturesque disorder, forming a simple magic array. Although there were only a dozen of them and they had not released the pressure of nascent soul stage cultivators, the threatening momentum was gradually revealed like a sword being unsheathed. In the face of tens of thousands of disciples of the Flying Shadow sect and thousands of birds and beasts, they were not at a disadvantage at all. "How dare you call yourself father in front of the disciples of the fallen celestial sect? You really deserve to die." The banished king smiled coldly. In his hand, a magic treasure like a jade rui scepter was released. A pillar of golden light soared into the sky and turned into a giant object in midair. What? You are disciples of the fallen celestial sect? The goat-horned Shi-Hu was shocked. It looked at the disciples of the fallen celestial sect in disbelief, and a strange expression appeared on its face. P.S. Fellow cultivators who like this book, please subscribe to it at Qidian, vote for it, vote for it, vote for it, donate it, and... Chapter 4867. Seeing Shi-Wu's strange expression, Fan Di said proudly, "Who dares to pretend to be a disciple of the fallen immortal sect in the Maple Cliff country? We were invited by sect leader Lu of the Chan He sect to help us. Considering that the Flying Shadow sect is also a branch of the Maple Cliff country, it is not easy for you to survive in the current world. So, if you know what's good for you, quickly lead your disciples back and swear a blood oath not to offend the Chan He sect. We will not lower ourselves to your level. Otherwise, don't blame us for being ruthless and killing your Flying Shadow sect in front of the Nebula Ridge." Although Fandi's tone was threatening, what he said was true. The Flying Shadow sect and the Chan He sect were equal in strength. There were 4 or 5 nascent soul cultivators in the sect. The reason why the Flying Shadow sect dared to provoke the Chan He sect was because of the flying beasts in the sect. The dozens of nascent soul cultivators of the fallen immortal sect and the disciples of the Chan He sect could definitely kill the Flying Shadow sect disciples brought by Shi-Wu. Sure enough, the goat-horned Shi-Wu was somewhat hesitant. A pair of flashing golden eyes blinked, as if it was thinking. However, after a moment, Shi-Wu raised his head and laughed. He raised his hand and said, "Ha, which hall of the fallen immortal sect are you from? Does your hall master know that you are so arrogant outside? You are really looking for death." Fan Di was furious. As he rubbed his hands, a thick crystal light appeared. However, just as the crystal light was about to fall into the void, Fan Di hesitated. This was because when he activated his spiritual power and a large amount of spiritual energy entered his body, he felt that his lifespan was slipping away bit by bit. Cough, cough. At this moment, a coughing sound came from behind the Flying Shadow sect disciples. Then, a figure swayed in the sunlight and flew out. The coughing sound was not loud, but it was like thunder in the ears of Fan Di and the disciples of the fallen immortal sect. Fan Di and the other disciples of the fallen immortal sect were shocked. They knew that this was the helper that Shi-Wu had found. However, when they saw the appearance of the person who came, they could not help but be shocked. The newcomer was a middle-aged cultivator in his 40s. His face was like a full moon, and although he wasn't wearing any battle armor, the golden light flashing around his body condensed into runes. These runes flew with the cultivator's body, and as they flowed, they revealed the shape of spirit armor and covered the cultivator's entire body. Vice Hall Master Huang? Without waiting for the middle-aged cultivator to fly closer, Exiled Monarch and the others all exclaimed in a low voice. They looked at each other and did not dare to be negligent. Although they did not withdraw the magic treasures they had taken out, they all bowed and said, "Disciple greets Vice Hall Master Huang." Vice Hall Master Huang flew closer and glanced at Banished King and the others. He frowned and asked curiously, "Why are you here at Nebula Ridge? Have you reported this to Su Xian?" When Vice Hall Chief Huang said this, Shijun did not suspect him at all. This was because although Vice Hall Chief Huang was the Vice Hall Chief of Jingshan Hall and did not know the Vice Hall Chief of the Kanxian Hall they were in, Su Xian was the deacon of the Kanxian Hall. She was in charge of the Kanxian Hall disciples entering and exiting the fallen immortal sect. Disciples have already reported to Deacon Su. Banished King didn't dare to hide anything and replied, "Get up. It seems like you were invited by Lu Hanhuan to deal with the Flying Shadow sect." Vice Hall Chief Huang smiled slightly. "Today, we have arrived at the Dragon King Temple. Yes, yes." Banished King's face was also filled with awkwardness. After all, the person in front of him was an early-stage spirit severing stage cultivator and a Vice Hall Chief of a hall. He was not someone his disciples could go against. "Huang Su." Just as Vice Hall Chief Huang and Banished King were talking, Shihua with the goat horn said unhappily from afar, "I invited you here to exterminate the Chan He sect, not to chat with your juniors." Now that Nebula Ridge is right in front of you, why aren't you attacking? Shi Hua with the goat horn's words were a little rude, and Huang Su's eyes were filled with displeasure. Banished King's eyes turned slightly as if he was thinking about something. Then, he looked at the few people beside him. These people exchanged glances with each other, and Banished King hurriedly transmitted his voice. Vice Hall Chief Huang, disciples and the others came to Nebula Ridge because of the great merit of the fallen immortal sect's spiritual master Huang Qiong. Since we have met Vice Hall Chief Huang today, we are willing to share this merit with you. Spiritual master Huang Qiong? When Huang Su heard this, he was shocked and ecstatic. How could he not know what Banished King was talking about? Without any hesitation, Huang Su turned his head and said indifferently, Shi Hua with the goat horn, I remember that we had an agreement before coming here. I can help you fend off the elders of the Chan He sect that you can't fend off. I can also help you fend off the experts of the Chan He sect. Am I right? Shi Hua with the goat horn nodded and said, That's right. It's good that you admit it. Huang Su raised his hand and pointed at Banished King and the others. Although these are my juniors, they are experts that your Flying Shadow sect cannot fend off. If I don't let them attack your Flying Shadow sect disciples, won't that be fulfilling the agreement I made with you? Ha! How could Shi Hua with the goat horn not understand Huang Su's plan? He laughed and said, That's right, that's right. That's right. As long as these fallen immortal sect disciples don't attack, I will definitely be able to exterminate the Chan He sect disciples in Nebula Ridge. Sai, we are all from the Fengyan sect. Why are you so anxious to kill each other? Huang Su sighed and said, I know that you have your eyes on Nebula Ridge. As long as Lu Hanhuan agrees to give Nebula Ridge to your Chan He sect, why do you have to be so ruthless? Of course I'm willing. I just don't know if Lu Hanhuan is willing. Shi Hua with the goat horn arrogantly called himself lousy in front of Huang Su. Seeing that Huang Su was not angry, Banished King and the other fallen immortal sect disciples lowered their heads slightly. Everyone knew in their hearts that Huang Su had gained a lot from this trip. That's good. Huang Su nodded slightly. He looked at Banished King and the others and said, Go and persuade Lu Hanhuan. Yes, I will do as you say. Of course, Banished King did not dare to be negligent. He hurriedly flew to the mountain-protecting formation of Chan He sect and raised his hand to salute. Sect leader Lu, I don't want to say anything more. You've seen everything. The life and death of Chan He sect are only in your hands. As for where to go, I think you must have made a decision. It was definitely out of Lu Hanhuan's expectations that the fallen immortal sect disciples would meet here. He did not expect that Flying Shadow sect's Shi Hua with the goat horn would actually bring a deputy hall master of fallen immortal sect over. And the fallen immortal sect disciples that he had high hopes for had to salute this deputy hall master respectfully. Lu Hanhuan's face was already pale. Taoist friend banished. Gao Cheng's face was very gloomy. He hurriedly flew forward and said loudly, Do you think this is appropriate? When my sect leader nodded, the ancestral property of Chan He sect was given to Flying Shadow sect. When my sect leader shook his head, Chan He sect and my disciples turned into ashes. What's the difference between this and not inviting you over? I traveled thousands of miles to fallen immortal sect and used the array flag of the heavenly cycle demon subduing star formation to invite you over. Is this an invitation for nothing? Could it be that your previous promise, and so on, were all perfunctory? You are representing Senior Xian Xiaozi of fallen immortal sect. However, Gao Cheng suddenly thought of something. His face turned pale and he looked at Banished King with fire in his eyes. He shouted, I understand. Banished King, you didn't even... Humph. Before Gao Cheng could finish his words, Fan Difei flew over and snorted, Gao Cheng, let me ask you, what did we promise you? Didn't you say that Chan He sect was in trouble and that Flying Shadow sect might attack Chan He sect? Did Chan He sect invite us over to help Chan He sect defend against the enemy? If we couldn't come over, Deputy Hall Master Huang could destroy Chan He sect alone. Why would Flying Shadow sect need to attack? If we didn't come over, would Flying Shadow sect give Chan He sect a way out? We came over and stopped Deputy Hall Master Huang from attacking. We also found a way out for Jianghu sect. Isn't this enough to repay us? Moreover, the array flag that you gave to the fallen immortal sect belongs to the fallen immortal sect. Don't tell me that you've taken something that belongs to the fallen immortal sect, and you still don't want to return it? Lu Pingxi questioned immediately. Gao Cheng raised his hand and pointed at Lu Pingxi. He didn't know what to say. He had given the array flag of the heavenly cycle demon subduing star formation to Fan Difei and the rest for nothing. In the end, he ended up like this. He didn't expect fallen immortal sect's disciples to be so shameless. Banished King seemed to be unable to bear it. He persuaded, sect leader Lu, where there is life, there is hope. Although Jianghu sect abandoned the mountain gate today, your disciples are still here, aren't they? We are grateful that you returned the array flag to fallen immortal sect. However, with our ability, we can only protect your disciples and leave. If you want to do more, it is beyond our ability. I have said all that I can say. As for where to go, it is still up to sect leader Lu to decide. Zhijun's words did sound reasonable. If they had not appeared, the Jianghu sect would have been annihilated. However, the current choice was definitely not the choice that Lu Hanhuan wanted to make. He had given away the array flag and invited fallen immortal sect's disciples over. Not only did he want to be on good terms with fallen immortal sect, but he also wanted to make use of fallen immortal sect's power to drive Flying Shadow sect away. He didn't want to be driven away by Flying Shadow sect. There is no need to consider, Lu Hanhuan said bitterly. He cupped his hands and said, is Jianghu sect still Jianghu sect without Star Cloud Ridge? Today, Flying Shadow sect let Jianghu sect go. Tomorrow, they will exterminate us. If that's the case, Jianghu sect might as well fight with Flying Shadow sect in front of Star Cloud Ridge. I don't believe that Jianghu sect can't defeat Flying Shadow sect. That's right. Yu Zhuohong and Pang Lusheng also flew over and sneered. We would rather die in battle than hand over the foundation of our ancestors to others. Alas, sect leader Lu. Banished King wanted to say something, but Fan Di beside him was already impatient. He pulled Banished King and said, Senior brother Banished, Jianghu sect has already made a choice. This has nothing to do with us. P.S. Fellow cultivators who like this book, please subscribe to it at Qidian, vote for it, vote for it, vote for it, donate it, and Chapter 4868. Lu Hanhuan looked at Exiled King's hesitation and said, Fellow cultivator Exiled King, the heavenly cycle demon subduing star formation is in the Shiyi mountain range to the west of Xingyun Ridge. You can find it if you go there. I have to lead my disciples to fight the enemy, so I can't accompany you. Please forgive me. Yu Zhuohong also cupped his hands proudly and said, Sect leader is right. If fellow cultivator Exiled King didn't come, our Jianghu sect wouldn't have been able to escape this calamity. If fellow cultivator Exiled King comes, our biggest threat will be removed and we will have a fair chance to compete with the Flying Shadow sect. The cost of the array flag is also worth it. Lu Hanhuan's mockery and Yu Zhuohong's arrogance caused the exiled monarch to feel ashamed. His face burned. He naturally knew why he and the others had come here, and what Lu Hanhuan and the others hoped for. Unfortunately, the ways of the world made fools of men. He had to face the seniors of his own sect. He had the will, but there was nothing he could do. Fan Di and the others had already flown to Huang Su's side. The group of fallen immortal sect disciples were waiting for him to return. Exiled King gritted his teeth and said, Forget it. Sect leader Lu, please wait for a moment. I will go and beg Vice Hall leader Huang. Unfortunately, before he could fly 100 feet away, Shi Wu, who was standing on top of the red python, was already impatient. He opened his mouth and ordered, Everyone, damn it. Banished Lord's expression changed as he cursed under his breath. He wanted to teleport to Huang Su's side, but at this moment, a calm voice rang out. Fortunately, there is still one disciple who has not completely wiped out his conscience. This has given this old man a little more confidence in the so-called great sects. If every disciple of the fallen immortal sect is so confusing, inverting black and white and speaking against their conscience, I really want to keep all of you here and let you know what conscience is. This voice wasn't loud, but it was abnormally clear. The tens of thousands of cultivators in Xingyun Ridge heard it clearly. Huang Su's expression was even worse. His eyes emitted a cold light as he looked at a place in Xingyun Ridge. At this moment, the sun was already rising. The orange sunlight shone on Xingyun Ridge. Xiaohua walked up to the sky with his hands behind his back. On that seemingly ordinary face, there was a sneer. This sneer was especially glaring under the sunlight. "Senior." Seeing Xiaohua fly out, Lu Hanhuan was shocked and hurriedly asked, "Why did you come out?" It's fine." Xiaohua didn't look at Lu Hanhuan, but his gaze fell on Huang Su as he said, "If this old man didn't come out, how could I see the ugly faces of the so-called famous sect's disciples?" Huang Su snorted and raised his voice, "Are you talking about this old man?" Huang Su. Without waiting for Xiaohua to speak, Shi Wu immediately shouted, "You can't leave. Since the Chan sect has another helper, you have to help me kill this helper." "Shut up." Huang Su's words were like spring thunder as he berated Shi Wu. "Is it up to you to decide whether this old man wants to leave or not?" "Sect Master Lu." Xiaohua walked to the front of the array and said to Lu Hanhuan, "Open the array and let this old man out." No. Lu Hanhuan hurriedly waved his hand and said, "Senior, how can you go out now?" Whether this old man can go out or not, it's not up to you to decide." Xiaohua smiled slightly and walked towards the 8-colored halo and fog. However, when he walked to the array, his body rippled with the same 8-colored brilliance. Without stopping, he had already passed through the mountain-protecting array of Chanhe sect. Lu Hanhuan was a little stunned and was surprised in his heart. Could it be? Senior Zhang didn't. Seeing Xiaohua fly out from Xingyun Ridge, Huang Su's divine sense immediately swept over. When his divine sense fell on Xiaohua, Huang Su was surprised again. Because there was no fluctuation of magic power around Xiaohua's body, it was like a mortal who had never cultivated. Moreover, under the fallen immortal sect's secret technique, he couldn't see Xiaohua's realm. Xiaohua didn't even have the pressure and bearing of a high-level cultivator. How dare you slander my fallen immortal sect's reputation here?" Huang Su calmed down and asked. Xiaohua looked at Huang Su and didn't answer directly. Instead, he asked back, "It doesn't matter who this old man is. What's important is, you are the disciples of the fallen immortal sect, the backbone of the cultivators of the Fengyan kingdom. If you don't protect the stability of the Fengyan kingdom and don't stop the unnecessary killing between the two sects, who can do it?" Huang Su sneered and said, "Fellow Taoist, aren't you afraid of biting your tongue? You actually put such a big label on this old man. In the Fengyan kingdom, what does the killing between two sects count for? What does the destruction of one sect count for?" In the distance, Shihua was the same as Huang Su. He scanned Xiaohua with his divine sense and didn't see anything special about Xiaohua. He couldn't help but sneer. He lifted his foot and pointed at the python dragon below him. He said loudly, "Everyone listen to my command, kill." Roar. The crimson python let out a furious roar, and its body rapidly expanded. Tens of thousands of heaven and earth spirit chi swept up like a gust of wind and rushed into its body. A layer of crimson light appeared on the python dragon's body. Following Shi Wu's order, the python dragon brought tens of thousands of birds and beasts to pounce on the Chanhe sect's mountain-protecting array. Huang Su didn't see Shihua listen to his command and rashly launch an attack order. He frowned slightly, but he didn't stop it. Instead, he looked at Xiaohua. He wanted to see how Xiaohua would attack. A trace of disdain appeared on Xiaohua's face. Then he didn't move, nor did he activate his magic power. Instead, he opened his mouth and a roar that was several times more ferocious than a dragon's roar came out of his mouth. Roar. As soon as this roar came out, it was like the cry of thousands of phoenixes and the roar of thousands of dragons. A kind of royal aura that penetrated the souls of thousands of beasts immediately poured out in all directions like the Milky Way. With the outpouring of the aura, the scenery within 1,000 miles changed greatly. High up in the sky, the wind blew and the clouds swayed. Red clouds covered the sky, and the sunlight that was shining down was instantly blocked. The spiritual chi of heaven and earth that was previously gushing towards this place had actually become chaotic and disorderly. Waves of strange hissing sounds rang out from all over the sky. The most terrifying thing was that wherever the whistling sound passed, the previously incomparably ferocious birds and beasts all trembled and fell from the sky. Fear appeared in their eyes, and they tried their best to maintain their bodies. As for the red python under Shihua's feet, its body twitched and shrank rapidly. It was like a small snake coiled in one place and didn't dare to move. Shihua, whose face was inlaid with dragon scales, also held its head with both hands. It seemed to be in extreme pain and rolled in the sky. The dragon scales on its face also emitted a blood-red dim light. After the birds and beasts, a large number of spirit-swallowing bugs fell like debris in the fierce wind. They fell on the heads and bodies of the stunned disciples of the Flying Shadow Sect. Although there were many disciples of the Flying Shadow Sect, they had already been disordered by Xiaohua's roar. The disciples who rode the birds and beasts seemed to be extremely afraid of Xiaohua's roar. Their eyes were a little dazed and their bodies fell with the birds and beasts. Huang Su and other disciples of the fallen Immortal sect were similar to those disciples of the Flying Shadow sect who had never ridden a beast. They only felt that Xiaohua's roar was like a sharp knife piercing their ears, but they didn't suffer any special injuries. However, when Huang Su saw thousands of birds and beasts of the Flying Shadow sect collapse under Xiaohua's roar, he was shocked again. He was entrusted by Shihua, so he naturally not only knew about the Flying Shadow sect, but also investigated the Chanhe sect. From various signs, it was clear that the Chanhe sect was a small sect with no foundation and no backing. The only thing they could do was to desperately select suitable disciples and transfer suitable disciples and their cultivation methods out of the Nebula Ridge. In the entire Nebula Ridge, there was no practitioner who could be his enemy. How could such an unfathomable practitioner appear in the Nebula Ridge in just dozens of days? Moreover, Huang Su knew that the reason why he agreed to Shihua's request was that he valued the rise of the Flying Shadow sect, which was based on raising demonic beasts, after the change of the spiritual chi of heaven and earth. The Flying Shadow sect, which was not particularly outstanding before, had frequently annexed other sects with the help of demonic beasts in the past 100 years. Its strength had been several times stronger than before. Otherwise, Shihua wouldn't dare to force the Chanhe sect like this. Now, Huang Su could clearly see that the mysterious cultivator in front of him didn't use any Taoist magic, nor did he use any secret technique. With just his howl, he was able to wipe out the Flying Shadow sect, which was in the limelight. Such means were far beyond his reach. Huang Su's expression was shocked and a little uncertain. He was thinking about how to deal with it. At this moment, Ji Jun's voice fell into his ears. Deputy Hall Master Huang, it's not too late to stop now. Our fallen Immortal sect is originally an outsider. Why should we interfere too deeply? That's right. Huang Su's heart moved and he already had a plan. He turned his head and nodded at Ji Jun and the others. With a wave of his sleeve, his body floated 1,000 feet away. Ji Jun and the others didn't dare to hesitate. They flew with Huang Su and distanced themselves from the Flying Shadow sect and the Chanhe sect. The disciples of the fallen Immortal sect had made a decision. Lu Hanhuan, who was in the Nebula Ridge, also woke up from his shock. He raised his hand and ordered without hesitation, "Disciples of the Chanhe sect, kill, kill!" Pang Lusheng and Gao Qing shouted loudly. They each waved their magic treasures and rushed out of the big formation, pouncing toward Shihua. The other disciples guarding the big formation also activated their magic treasures. They either left the big formation to attack or borrowed the power of the big formation to pounce on the Flying Shadow sect disciples who weren't injured by Xiaohua. As for Lu Hanhuan, he nodded slightly at Yu Zhuohong. The two of them respectfully flew out of the big formation and landed beside Xiaohua. Xiaohua's figure was still tall and thin, but in the eyes of the two, he was already incomparably tall. They knew that with their strength, they wouldn't be able to measure the magical powers of this practitioner in front of them. P.S. Fellow Taoists who like this book, please subscribe to it at Qidian, vote for it, vote for it, vote for it, give it as a reward, and Chapter 4869. Looking at the disciples of Jianghu sect and the disciples of Flying Shadow sect fighting back in panic, Xiao Hua, as the instigator, had an indescribable loneliness on his face. Previously, on the 3 continents, the disciples of Dao sect were struggling to survive under the pressure of the Buddhist sect, Confucian cultivators, and demon clan. Now, on the 3 continents, the Buddhist sect, Confucian cultivators, and demon clan were fighting against the world-exterminating ephemera for survival. On the Yi-Lin continent, the 2 Dao sects of Chu-Pu Immortal Alliance were killing each other. Regardless of the Flying Shadow sect's coercion or the Jianghu sect's counterattack, Xiao Hua felt that there was something strange. Forget it. Xiao Hua was bored and waved his hand. Capture the sect leader of Flying Shadow sect. You can do whatever you want with him. As for the other disciples, don't hurt them too much. With that, Xiao Hua turned and walked towards Xingyun Ridge. Lu Hanhuan was stunned and did not dare to delay. He hurriedly sent a message to Yu Zhuohong. Yu Zhuohong was still unconvinced and wanted to fly over to say something to Xiao Hua. At this moment, a light flashed in the air and Huang Su's figure flew over from afar and landed beside Xiao Hua. Junior Huang Su greets Senior. Huang Su's figure was not stable and he immediately bowed. Where was the arrogant look from before? Oh! Xiao Hua stood still and looked up and down at Huang Su. He said coldly, "What else do you want? Could it be, you really want to fulfill your promise with Flying Shadow sect?" Huang Su smiled and said, "With Senior here, how would Junior dare to make a move? Junior just wanted to see Senior and ask for Senior's name." Hee. Xiao Hua smiled and said, "Huang Su, if you want to fight with me because of your promise, then I will look at you differently. Then this old man will have a whole new level of respect for you. There's no harm in telling you my name. Unfortunately, you are not as good as that disciple called Banished Monarch. You did not even keep the most basic integrity of a famous sect. What qualifications do you have to know my name?" Huang Su bit his lips and was a little angry. He did not think that Xiao Hua was stronger than him. After all, he had reached the early stage of spirit-severing stage. He put himself in the position of a junior disciple because he did not want to interfere with the grudge between Flying Shadow sect and Jianghu sect and let Xiao Hua control the situation. But Xiao Hua's words were like a knife, mercilessly cutting through the hypocrisy on his face bit by bit, making him truly embarrassed. Looking at the anger in Huang Su's eyes, Xiao Hua shouted, "What? Do you want to fight with me now? If you take action now, you won't be fulfilling your promise to the Flying Shadow sect. Instead, you'll be humiliated into anger. Not only will you fail to impress this old man, you will only infuriate this old man and kill you." Then, Huang Su narrowed his eyes and said, "Let's give it a try." Huang Su did not believe that there was a void refinement realm cultivator in Fengyan country that he did not know. Xiaohua, 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 Xiaochen, sect, section, sect. If there is no accident, you will break through in a few months. Instead of fighting with this old man here and wasting your lifespan for nothing, it is better to think about what will happen after the middle stage of spirit-severing stage. It seems that your lifespan will not be long. Huang Su was shocked. He looked at Xiao Hua in disbelief as if he had seen a ghost. Huang Su was able to become the vice hall master of Jingshan Hall. Naturally, he was outstanding. After he came to his senses, he knelt down and kowtowed without hesitation. "Senior, please save me." Huang Su knelt down. Not only were Lu Hanhuan and Yu Zhuohong surprised, but also Fei Jun, Fan Di, and the others from the fallen Immortal sect. They were all confused. Was the hall master of the fallen Immortal sect the kind of person who could kneel down casually? "What are you doing?" Xiao Hua sneered. "This is a change in spiritual energy. It is the law of heaven and earth. How can I help you? Instead of kneeling down to me, why don't you take the heavenly cycle demon subduing star formation's array flag and collect the remains left behind by spiritual master Huang Qiong in the formation. Then, quickly return to the fallen Immortal sect and ask for credit from your sect master. That way, the fallen Immortal sect can help you extend your lifespan. Senior, it's all my fault." Huang Su did not dare to raise his head. He only knelt in the air and confessed. I shouldn't have listened to the goat horn Shiwu's bewitchment and come to Xingyun Ridge to offend you. I don't dare to ask for anything else. I only hope that you can forgive me. Xiaohua had seen thick-skinned people before, but he had not seen many people as thick-skinned as Huang Su. Of course, he knew what Huang Su was asking for, but he did not say it. Instead, he nodded and said, "Don't worry. Why would I lower myself to the same level as a junior? You can go now. I was the one who discovered the heavenly cycle demons subduing star formation. Because I have some karma with the Chanhe sect, I gave the array flag to them. Everything in the array. I didn't touch it. The Chanhe sect also didn't touch it. If you have a conscience, report the matter of the Chanhe sect to your sect master in full detail. Don't forget the Chanhe sect when you reward them. It's not bad that you can do this." Huang Su could not see the depth of Xiaohua's strength, but when he heard Xiaohua's words, he was sweating profusely again. These words were not ordinary, and his tone was also not ordinary arrogant. If the person in front of him was not bluffing, then the strength of the person in front of him was definitely not what he could imagine. But when he thought of Xiaohua's howl just now, Huang Su threw the word bluffing to the back of his mind. But if he really wanted to rely on Xiaohua's strength to become the sect master of the fallen immortal sect, he felt that it was not very possible. So he thought for a moment, stood up respectfully and said, "Junior will follow senior's orders and do what senior instructed. As for senior's matter, there's no need to hide, you can report as much as you want." Xiaohua did not care. He waved his hand and said, "You all go quickly, don't make any changes." "Yes, Junior understands." Huang Su nodded and replied, "The relic of Huang Qiongzhenren's tribulation is something that the fallen immortal sect has been looking for hundreds of years. Junior boldly invites Senior to come to the fallen immortal sect when you are free, so that the fallen immortal sect can have the opportunity to thank Senior for his generous gift." As he spoke, Huang Su took out a fist-sized item that looked like a seal and handed it over respectfully. He said, "This is the token of the fallen immortal sect. I only have this with me. Senior, please accept it. When Senior arrives at the Sunset Mountain, my sect master will definitely welcome you personally." Xiaohua told Huang Su about the heavenly cycle demon subduing star array because he did not want the Chanhe sect to get into any trouble. He did not have any plans to go to the fallen immortal sect. He originally wanted to refuse, but when he heard Huang Su say that the token was not ordinary, he thought for a moment and waved his hand to accept the token. The token was neither gold nor stone. It was pale yellow in color, and the cloud shadow of a mountain range appeared from the token. When one looked at it, the cloud shadow swayed, and the mountain range seemed to be real. Seeing that the token was not ordinary, Xiaohua knew that Huang Su was not lying. He nodded and said, "I'll accept the token, but I'm not sure when I can go." When Huang Su saw this, he was ecstatic and hurriedly said, "Senior, you can go whenever you want. I'm already grateful that Senior can accept my token today. I was a little reckless before. Now that Senior has accepted the token, I'm relieved. You can go and wait." Seeing that the banished king and the others were about to come over to greet him, Xiaohua waved his hand and ignored Huang Su. He walked back to the Lap's palace. Huang Su did not dare to move. When Xiaohua's figure landed on the nebula ridge, he then cupped his hands and said to Lu Hanhuan, "Sect Master Lu, I've offended you today. I'll definitely report today's matter and the matter of the heavenly cycle demon subduing star array to my sect master." Lu Hanhuan was naturally flattered and hurriedly returned the greeting, "I'll have to trouble Vice Hall Master Huang." Huang Su still wanted to ask about Xiaohua's origin, but he was afraid of making Xiaohua unhappy. He rolled his eyes and reminded, "Sect Master Lu, Flying Shadow Sect has the intention to force Chanhe Sect. Goat Horn Shiwu and several elders of Flying Shadow Sect must be killed. The other disciples can listen to Senior's orders and be lenient." "Yes, I know." Lu Hanhuan smiled and said, "Senior Zhang is very kind and doesn't seem to like killing. I'll stop before going too far." Don't worry." Huang Su smiled slightly. "With Senior Zhang in the Nebula Ridge, I'll report the matter of Chanhe Sect to my sect master. In the future, in Fengyan country, and even in Chu Pu Immortal Union, who would dare to have ideas about Chanhe Sect? I'll have to trouble Vice Hall Master Huang. Lu Hanhuan hurriedly said, I'm also very grateful to Vice Hall Master Huang. Well said, well said. Huang Su saw that the Chan He sect disciples had taken control of the situation and waved his hand. I don't dare to delay. I'll lead the disciples to Shi Mountain Range now. Elder Yu. Lu Hanhuan hurriedly ordered Yu Zhuohong. Vice Hall Master Huang is not familiar with the terrain here. Quickly take Zhang Ji and the other disciples and lead Vice Hall Master Huang over. Yes, Sect Master. Yu Zhuohong replied and released his divine perception to search for Zhang Ji. Huang Su smiled and said, Thank you, Sect Master Lu. I'll take my leave. Watching Huang Su and the others fly to Shi Mountain Range under the lead of Yu Zhuohong and Zhang Ji, Lu Hanhuan's mouth revealed a trace of a cold smile. Putting aside the fact that Lu Hanhuan had led the disciples of the Chan sect to clean up the mess, Huang Su had brought Ji Jun and the others to fly behind Yu Zhuohong. Ji Jun and the others had long been surprised. They all transmitted their voices to inquire about the news. How would Huang Su know too much? He only briefly explained the matter. Looking at Yu Zhuohong in front of him, he said, Elder Yu, I have something to ask. I wonder if it's okay? How could Yu Zhuohong not know what he wanted to ask? He turned around and smiled. Vice Hall Master Huang, do you want to ask about Senior Zhang? That's right, that's right. Vice Hall Master Huang smiled and said, Although our Tsiupu Immortal Alliance is big, Fengyan Kingdom is small. Although I'm a Vice Hall Master of the fallen Immortal sect, I've seen many seniors of the Immortal Alliance. However, I'm unfamiliar with this Senior Zhang. I don't even know his name, so please enlighten me, Elder Yuan. Of course, if Senior Zhang has any special instructions, you don't have to say it in detail. P.S. Fellow Taoists who like this book, please subscribe to it at Qidian, vote for it, vote for it, vote for it, give it as a reward, and thank you for all forms of support. Chapter 4870. Yu Zhuohong wanted to fabricate more about the relationship between Chan He sect and Xiaohua, but she knew that the truth would come out sooner or later. With Chan He sect's background, they could not rely on Xiaohua. In the future, Chan He sect could rely more on fallen Immortal sect, so she had already reported to Lu Hanhuan before she left. At this moment, she did not hide anything inside. Alas, to be honest, Chan He sect is not clear about Senior Zhang's background. But because Chan He sect's disciple met Senior Zhang when he came out of seclusion, Senior Zhang especially favored Chan He sect. After listening to Yu Zhuohong's explanation, Huang Su slowly came to a realization. He could not help but secretly curse the Chan He sect's ***** luck. However, when he heard that Xiaohua had used the spiritual root to select a disciple and even used the spiritual root identification technique, he could not help but tremble. His flying figure hovered in midair as he exclaimed, Elder Yu, are you telling the truth? Of course. Yu Zhuohong said proudly. I even took the method of selecting spiritual roots to the Xiahong Mountain auction house to bid. How can it be fake? Silly. Huang Su scolded. How can you take this celestial method to the auction house to bid? But after saying that, Huang Su came to a realization and hurriedly corrected himself. Oh, Elder Yu, I'm sorry. I'm the silly one. My fallen Immortal sect has been worrying about selecting disciples all these years and could not find a way. Now that I heard about this celestial method, I'm overjoyed. Don't blame me, don't blame me. Yu Zhuohong smiled. Not only Deputy Hall Master Huang, but also my sect leader, and I don't understand. But this is Senior Zhang's order, he said. After Yu Zhuohong finished explaining Xiaohua's words, Huang Su was shocked, Ji Jun was shocked, and all the disciples of fallen Immortal sect were shocked. They couldn't compare to the disciples of Chan He sect. Fallen Immortal sect was the #1 sect in Fengyan Kingdom and was also a famous sect in Tsiupu Immortal Union. Fallen Immortal sect's disciples were much more knowledgeable than Zhuohong. From Xiaohua's mouth, they had already seen Xiaohua's bearing and understood, not to mention Chan He sect, even fallen Immortal sect wouldn't be able to see Xiaohua in his eyes. After Yu Zhuohong finished speaking, he took out a few jade slips from his storage ring and handed them to Huang Su, saying, This is the secret technique of spiritual root selection, which was just handed over to me by my sect leader. Please kindly accept it, Deputy Hall Master Huang. Previously, when Yu Zhuohong had spoken, Huang Su's heart felt as if it had been scratched by a cat. He had been thinking about how to ask for it, but now that Yu Zhuohong had generously handed it over, he couldn't help but be overjoyed. He almost forgot himself as he took it and hurriedly probed it with his divine sense. Hiss! After Huang Su saw it, he couldn't help but suck in a breath of cold air. He looked up at the exiled monarch and asked, "Where is the exiled monarch?" "I'm here." The exiled monarch looked serious and hurriedly bowed, saying, "I don't know what Deputy Hall Master Huang wants me to do." "You take 10 disciples and return to the sect quickly." Huang Su handed the jade slip to the exiled monarch and said, "This jade slip is really too important to our fallen immortal sect. Don't worry, this contribution is far greater than the heavenly cycle demon subduing star array. As long as you bring the method of spiritual root selection back to the sect, the Deputy Hall Master of Kanxian Hall will be yours in the future." The exiled monarch was shocked and hurriedly waved his hand, saying, "Deputy Hall Master Huang, this matter is too important, or let the Hall Master bring it back personally?" "You silly child." Huang Su looked at the disciples in front of him and said with a smile, "Senior Zhang has just said that I will enter the intermediate stage of spirit severing stage in a few decades. With my ability, I'm afraid I won't have the chance to enter the advanced stage of spirit severing stage again. You are still young. If I don't give this opportunity to you, who else can I give it to? Besides, don't forget that you are the helpers invited by the Chanhe sect, not me." "Yes, I understand." The exiled monarch took the jade slip. Before he could keep it in his storage ring, Huang Su thought of something again and said, "Don't worry, let me make a copy of this thing first." Deputy Hall Master Huang, I have more here." Yu Zhuohong smiled and took out a few more jade slips and handed them to Huang Su. Huang Su smiled bitterly. This secret technique was too precious, so he lost his composure a little. But he forgot that Xiaohua's original intention was to make this secret technique public. After taking the jade slip and keeping it carefully, Huang Su ordered the exiled monarch, "Don't stop for a moment, return to the fallen immortal sect immediately. This secret technique has been spread out. The earlier it is used, the earlier the fallen immortal sect will benefit. By the way, remember, you must inform the sect master. If the sect master is free, please come to Xingyun Ridge personally. Since Senior Zhang has the secret technique of spiritual root selection, he must also have the secret technique of spiritual root cultivation. He has just come out of seclusion and hasn't made the secret technique public yet. Our fallen immortal sect can beat him to it. It will be good for the future development of the sect and even the sect master's own cultivation." Seeing that Huang Su was so serious about this matter, Yu Zhuohong's expression changed. Xiaohua had previously mentioned that these secret techniques could bring about disasters and opportunities. She and Lu Hanhuan were very hesitant. They originally wanted to discuss carefully before making a decision, but they didn't expect that the fallen immortal sect's disciples and the flying shadow sect's disciples would attack them one after another. Before Yu Zhuohong left, he simply transmitted a few words to Lu Hanhuan. Both of them felt that the fallen immortal sect was a big sect, so they must have their own way of selecting disciples. Therefore, they chose to offer the method of spiritual root selection to the fallen immortal sect in exchange for protection and temporarily hide the news of the spiritual root cultivation method. Unfortunately, they didn't expect that the fallen immortal sect didn't have an effective method of selecting disciples. Moreover, Huang Su deduced that Xiaohua had the spiritual root cultivation method from the method of spiritual root selection. Yu Zhuohong couldn't help but think of what Xiaohua said. It wasn't an alarmist talk. Fei Jun also carefully kept the jade bamboo slip. He turned around and picked 10 junior brothers who were close to him. He bowed and said, "Deputy Hall Master Huang, I'll go back first. Please be careful." Both. Huang Su noticed the change in Yu Zhuohong's expression. He slapped his forehead and shouted, "Tell the sect master Senior Zhang's ability to annihilate the flying shadow sect today. And ask the sect master to issue the sect master's order to form a life and death alliance with the Chanhe sect." "Yes, I know." Fei Jun smiled and said, "I'll definitely pass on this message. Please rest assured, Deputy Hall Master Huang and Elder Yu. Go! Deputy Hall Master Huang waved his hand. After Fei Jun left, Huang Su's face was full of smiles. He said to Yu Zhuohong, Elder Yu, the surprise you gave me today is really too much. Yu Zhuohong smiled bitterly and said, Unfortunately, this is the only surprise I can give you. Senior Zhang has never mentioned the spiritual root cultivation method. That's for sure. In order to comfort Yu Zhuohong, Huang Su had to say, because the Chanhe sect is really small. Senior Zhang cherishes the Chanhe sect, so he can't give the secret technique to the Chanhe sect. When my sect master comes over, Senior Zhang may give the secret technique to the fallen Immortal sect. When the fallen Immortal sect benefits from it, we won't neglect the Chanhe sect. I thank Deputy Hall Master Huang on behalf of my sect master. Yu Zhuohong smiled and bowed. You're welcome, you're welcome. Huang Su hurriedly helped Yu Zhuohong up and said with a smile, if the fallen Immortal sect forms a life and death alliance with the Chanhe sect, then our two sects will be a family. How can a family say a few words? Hearing Huang Su say a family, Yu Zhuohong's heart skipped a beat. He understood that the so-called life and death alliance between two sects with similar strength could naturally be regarded as a real life and death alliance. If the fallen Immortal sect and the Chanhe sect talked about a life and death alliance, it would be a joke. Rather than a life and death alliance, it would be more like being annexed. But even so, being a disciple of the fallen Immortal sect might not be worse than being a disciple of the Chanhe sect, right? Xiao Huan naturally didn't know that the secret technique of selecting disciples had caused so many changes. He walked down from the sky and returned to the elapsed time hall. He waved his hand and took out the remaining jade slips and roughly looked through them. Similar to what Lu Hanhuan said, most of the records in the Chanhe sect were about the development of the Nebula Ridge and some things about the Fengyan Kingdom. The rest were about the cultivation methods and other things that the Chanhe sect had collected over the years. Xiaohua was quite interested in the development of the Chanhe sect at first, but as he read, he became depressed. The Chanhe sect was just a small sect. No matter how many things it recorded, it would not be enough for a human Mahayana realm cultivator. Not only did Xiaohua need to understand the Fengyan Kingdom, but he also needed to understand the Tsiupu Immortal Alliance, the Dao Alliance, and even the Heaven Alliance. It was impossible for Xiaohua to see these things in the Chanhe sect. Alas, maybe it's time to leave. Xiaohua withdrew his divine thought and put the last jade slip back into the corona. He pinched his chin and sighed slightly. Although I haven't recovered my divine sense, I can't waste my time on the Nebula Ridge. Now that I've eliminated the threat of the Flying Shadow sect for the Chanhe sect, I've returned the favor to the Chanhe sect. I'd better move first and use the teleportation formation to go to the Wuming Mountain Range. Even if I reach the border between the Dao Alliance and the Heaven Alliance, my divine sense is not enough to enter the Heaven Alliance. It's better than waiting here. Since he had made up his mind, Xiaohua turned and walked out of the elapsed time hall. At this time, Lu Hanhuan was not waiting outside the hall. Only two Foundation establishment disciples were standing there respectfully. Seeing Xiaohua come out, the two disciples hurriedly greeted him and said respectfully, Senior, do you have any instructions? Well, please ask sect leader Lu to come here. I have something to ask him. Xiaohua replied with a smile. The news that Xiaohua killed the Flying Shadow sect with a long roar had been spread wildly among the disciples of the Chanhe sect. The two disciples did not personally experience it because they were guarding the elapsed time hall. However, after hearing about Xiaohua's deeds, they had long regarded Xiaohua as a godlike existence. Now, they did not dare to neglect him. The two disciples exchanged glances and one of them hurriedly replied, Senior, please wait a moment. I'll send a message to our sect leader. After that, the disciple waved his hand and activated a yellow talisman. The yellow talisman gave birth to a flame in midair and turned into a fist-sized pigeon that flapped its wings and flew away. P.S. Fellow cultivators who like this book, please subscribe to it at the Chidian point, vote for it, vote for it, vote for it, give it as a reward, and Chapter 4871. Oh, and Xiaohua thought of something and said embarrassedly, please find New a Yeching. Yes, Senior. The other disciple smiled and said, "However, I don't have junior brother Nua's communication talisman. I have to go out and send a message. Please wait for a moment." "Don't worry, quickly go." Xiao Hua's amiability was beyond the expectations of the two disciples. Sure enough, not long after, Lu Hanhuan flew over with a smile on his face, and when he saw Xiao Hua standing outside the hall, he hurriedly stepped forward and said, "Senior, if you have any errands, feel free to ask your disciples to send a message to me. You can just wait in the hall. Why wait here?" Seeing Lu Hanhuan in high spirits, Xiao Hua smiled and said, "Has the Flying Shadow sect been dealt with?" "I was just about to report this to Senior." Lu Hanhuan said respectfully, "Senior, please take a seat at the door. I will tell you everything." Xiao Hua didn't know Lu Hanhuan too well. He thought for a moment and nodded. "This old man will listen to how you deal with the Flying Shadow sect." Lu Hanhuan respectfully invited Xiao Hua to take a seat at the head of the table. He stood below and carefully reported. He didn't dare to hide any details. Xiao Hua narrowed his eyes and listened carefully. He didn't say anything to interrupt. After Lu Hanhuan finished speaking, he looked at Xiao Hua nervously. He didn't know if what he did was right. Lu Hanhuan's actions were reasonable. After Xiao Hua returned to Xingyun Ridge, Lu Hanhuan led the disciples of the Chanhe sect to capture the injured disciples of the Flying Shadow sect, including the sect master Shihua. As for the disciples who escaped, Lu Hanhuan didn't chase after them. Instead, after cleaning up the mess, he sent Gao Cheng to lead the disciples to attack the Flying Shadow sect. This time, Yang Jiao Shiwu brought all the disciples of the Flying Shadow sect out. She thought that she had full confidence in winning. Other than an elder, there were no other disciples at the mountain gate of the Flying Shadow sect. If nothing went wrong, Gao Cheng should be able to win without a fight and bring the Flying Shadow sect into the sphere of influence of the Chanhe sect. The reason why Lu Hanhuan felt uneasy was because he had listened to Huang Su's suggestion. After capturing Goathorn Shihua and the other elders of the Flying Shadow sect, he had crippled their cultivation to prevent future troubles. Although he did not take their lives, he was afraid that Xiao Hua would be unhappy. Who knew that after Xiao Hua heard this, he asked with interest, "In that case, are you planning to expand the Chanhe sect?" After Lu Hanhuan felt relieved, he immediately calmed down and became bolder. He nodded and said, "Previously, I was afraid of the fallen Immortal sect. I was also afraid that the other sects would notice the Chanhe sect. I was hesitant. But now that I've seen the fallen Celestial sect, I think I can do a better job than the disciples of these reputable sects." "Oh? What are you going to do?" Xiao Hua raised his eyebrows and asked curiously. "I don't have any plans for the time being. After all, I didn't think too much about it before. Even now, I don't dare to speak nonsense in front of Senior." Lu Hanhuan smiled and said, "I only want to take down the Flying Shadow sect and support the elder of the Flying Shadow sect to be the sect master. Then, I want to invite Elder Gao Cheng to be the deputy sect master of the Flying Shadow sect." Seeing that Lu Hanhuan was getting more and more excited as he spoke, Xiao Hua laughed secretly. Lu Hanhuan's thinking was too simple. He was lacking in many areas. This was not only related to the Chanhe sect's seclusion, but also to Lu Hanhuan's character. Xiao Hua couldn't say much about this. After Lu Hanhuan finished speaking, Xiao Hua said, "Are you confident that you can do better than the disciples of the fallen Immortal sect?" "Of course." Lu Hanhuan nodded resolutely and said, "I don't dare to say anything else. Just based on the actions of the disciples of the fallen Immortal sect, I will definitely do better than them. I will definitely keep my promise, even if the other party is an elder of my sect." Xiao Hua smiled and said, "I believe you can do it. But I want to tell you a story." Lu Hanhuan didn't understand, but he still said respectfully, "Senior, please tell me. I am all ears." "When I was training in the past, I once went to a secular country. There were many corrupt officials in this country who lived a corrupt life of plundering the wealth of the people. Among the exploited commoners, there was a very insightful scholar. He saw that the commoners were living a difficult life, so he rose up and led the commoners to fight against those corrupt officials. He claimed that he wanted to overthrow these corrupt officials and divide the land equally between the rich and the poor. Because the commoners were oppressed by the corrupt officials and had no way to live, many commoners joined this scholar. This scholar and his subordinates were invincible. In the end, all the corrupt officials in this country were killed by this scholar and his subordinates. Xiaohua opened his mouth and said, "And when this scholar and those commoners who followed him became officials and grasped power, in the beginning, they were still very honest and remembered the promise they made before they rose up. But in the end, they began to exploit other commoners, even more so than the corrupt officials from before." Xiaohua's story was very short. In fact, it couldn't be considered a story. Lu Hanhuan listened and frowned. Although he didn't really understand what corrupt officials and what country, he already understood the meaning of Xiaohua's story. He carefully said, "Senior, could it be that you think I can't do as well as a disciple of the fallen immortal sect?" Xiaohua smiled and said, "It's not that I don't believe you. It's just that I think it's too difficult. From the perspective of a bystander, I always feel that the person involved is too shallow. It's really damaging the reputation of the famous sects. But if you really let me do it, sometimes I can't even do as well as the person involved. I also don't dare to ask you for more, as long as you can do something similar to that, banished emperor, I will be satisfied." In the future? Lu Hanhuan heard something from Xiaohua's words and hurriedly asked, "Senior, are you leaving Xingyun Ridge?" "That's right." Xiaohua nodded and said, "I'm not a disciple of the Chanhe sect. Naturally I have to leave." "Where you going, senior?" Lu Hanhuan couldn't help but ask. Xiaohua smiled and looked outside the hall and said, "Where I came from, I naturally have to go somewhere else. Senior, from Fengyan Kingdom to Wuming Mountain Range, we have to pass through many immortal alliances, and from the Tao Alliance to the Heaven Alliance, there's a gap that ordinary cultivators can't cross." Lu Hanhuan pleaded, "Senior, why don't you stay in Xingyun Ridge, wait for your magical power to recover before you leave?" Xiaohua shook his head. "I've made up my mind. I called you here today to discuss two things with you." Lu Hanhuan knew that he couldn't keep Xiaohua. Tears welled up in his eyes, and he knelt on the ground and said, "Junior, thank you for your kindness, senior. If it wasn't for you, how could I stand in front of you now? How could my Chanhe sect still exist in Xingyun Ridge? Not to mention two things, even if it's 10 things or 100 things, I'll agree." "Get up." Xiaohua helped Lu Hanhuan up and said, "The first thing is about the modified cultivation method. You have to think clearly, do you want it or not?" Lu Hanhuan got up. Seeing that Xiaohua was so faithful to his promise, he was grateful in his heart, but at the same time he felt embarrassed and replied, "Speaking of this, I have to report to you, senior. When Elder Yu accompanied Huang Su to Xia Mountain Range that day, I didn't think it through and revealed the secret method of selecting spiritual roots to the fallen immortal sect first. Out of my expectation, the famous fallen immortal sect was actually troubled by the matter of selecting disciples. When Huang Su brought the jade slip back to the fallen immortal sect, he also guessed that you might have a suitable cultivation method for spiritual roots, and wanted to invite the head of the fallen immortal sect, Xian Xiaozi, to come to Xingyun Ridge and pay a visit to you personally." "Oh, I understand." Xiaohua's expression didn't change. "Head Lu, you want the modified cultivation method, but you're afraid that the fallen immortal sect's Xian Xiaozi would turn against you after taking the cultivation method?" Lu Hanhuan blushed and nodded. "Senior, what you said is really my intention. I'm really scared by the shamelessness of the fallen immortal sect's disciples." "Not to that extent." Xiaohua thought for a while and said, "If I can modify the cultivation method, the head of the fallen immortal sect must also be able to modify the cultivation method. Moreover, the cultivation of disciples with spiritual roots isn't much different from the cultivation of ordinary disciples. The use of spiritual roots is only to select the disciples who are able to cultivate. Of course, the spiritual energy of heaven and earth is changing. I don't know whether the spiritual roots can be used for cultivation in the future. Moreover, although the actions of the fallen immortal sect's disciples were a little shameless, they weren't unreasonable, and Xian Xiaozi wouldn't be like Yang Jiaoshi Wu, so you don't have to worry too much. Moreover, the rarer something is, the more valuable it is. If the fallen immortal sect wants to lay their hands on the Chanhe sect, They must be afraid that the secret skills and cultivation methods will be leaked. After I leave, I will definitely bid for these secret skills and cultivation methods at the places I pass by. When the Fengyan kingdom has more of these items, the fallen immortal sect will naturally not have any evil intentions. After listening to Xiaohua's explanation, Lu Hanhuan made a decision and replied, "If that's the case, I have no choice but to take these modified cultivation methods. Otherwise, wouldn't I have offended Senior Xian Shaozi if he comes and misses me?" "It's up to your own judgment." Xiaohua said, "Anyway, I have an agreement with you. If you want it, I'll leave the cultivation method behind. Then I'll have to trouble you, Senior, to give me the cultivation method of those spiritual roots." Lu Hanhuan said and probed, "Senior, can't you stay for a few more days? Can you wait until Xian Xiaozi comes before you leave? It's only about 10 days from the fallen immortal sect to here. It won't take up too much of your time." "Sigh, fine." Xiaohua was the most soft-hearted. When he heard Lu Hanhuan's pleading, he thought that it would only take about 10 days, so he sighed and agreed, "Then I'll stay in Xingyun Ridge for another month. However, I'll make it clear, if Xian Xiaozi doesn't come in a month, I'll definitely leave, and I won't wait for another day." P.S. Fellow cultivators who like this book, please subscribe to it at Qidian, vote for it, vote for it, vote for it, give it a tip, and